Hello, and you are listening to the annual Book Was Better Novelization Writing Challenge, the podcast where we write the book of the film. I'm Luke.
I'm Jessica.
I'm Lizzy.
I'm Courtney.
I'm Suzanne.
And this week we're writing Theodore Rex!
Hey you, put down the popcorn and turn on the light. It's gonna be alright, my friend. In the end, take my hand and trust me, the book was better.
Holy crap, here we are, another year has passed, and this is our Christmas episode. This is our final thing for the year. So awesome to have everybody here.
Is it though?
Yeah, and we should mention also writing this time from interstate, from across the country, is Xavier has included a scene as well. Yeah. So this is an absolutely massive episode.
This is insane. It's a massive episode looking at a ridiculous film.
So yeah, if people don't know, this is Theodore Rex, the film...
If people don't know. In case you're one of the few who didn't see Theodore Rex in the cinema.
Oh my god.
Well, has anybody actually seen the film?
No.
Yes.
Oh, yes, no,
Yes.
I have seen it like in the 80s or something.
Why?
No, not the 80s. Isn't that the thing? You think it's an 80s film. It's 96 or something.
Really?
It seems a lot older than it
Yeah.
actually is.
I didn't look at photos, I didn't look at footage, I didn't look at
No,
anything.
me too.
So as a result, the whole thing just sounds like this weird fever dream.
I saw it on video back in the day, but I don't remember
Like
it.
VHS video?
Yeah, I
Probably.
saw it. My parents used to... You remember Video Easy? They used to get rid of the ex-rental VHSs,
Yeah.
and my parents used to get a lot of those. And Sega games. Sega?
Sega!
Thank you, Luke.
And yes, amongst those videos was... Oh, the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, that was pretty cool. Anyway, there was also Theodore Rex.
So you guys owned it.
We owned it.
What did you think of it as a child?
Only watched that once. I watched the other ones over and over. Watched that one once. Mostly because the dinosaurs are really, really badly done and they creep me out.
Oh,
How old were you when you had this?
God, I'd be 6, maybe 5, 6. Yeah.
You're so young!
Probably the correct target audience.
And even I thought I was above it.
Because I've only... Luke, you showed me the trailer for this
yeah.
when you were floating it, and I thought, yes, I want to be on this. But I've changed my mind.
Well, look, we've mentioned
It's not too late to pull
dinosaurs.
out.
That might be a bit cryptic to people. This is actually a buddy cop movie from the 90s where Whoopi Goldberg is a cop in the
Loves it.
future. And her partner is an animatronic T-Rex.
It's going to be everything
it's
at
a
once.
Whoopi Goldberg vehicle. It's an attempt to give her a main role and see if they can sell it, and they could not.
Well, let's talk about the trivia then, because it's interesting that you say that, Jess. There's only a few pieces of trivia on IMDb, and I think they're all worth sharing because they set up the tone of this film. So see what you guys think about this. Intended for theatrical release, the finished film was so bad that the studio decided to cut their losses and send it straight to video, making it the most expensive straight-to-video film ever at the time of release.
Wow.
Oh.
Wise move, though. Wise move.
Here's another one. Crew members left constantly during production. Whoopi Goldberg once said that on her final day of shooting, 99% of the crew was different from the first day.
Like The Room.
Yeah, The Room is about the only other film where that's
Were
happened.
they all just going out on stress leave? Like, this dialogue makes no sense. I'm out of here.
Whoopi Goldberg wanted to leave the film during the production.
That is not surprising.
Jonathan R. Butel retired from directing after this film. He felt the studio didn't market it correctly.
Yes. That was the problem. You know, that was really the only problem with this film.
They could have marketed it to non-English speakers. They would have loved it.
You mentioned Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg made a verbal agreement to star in the film in 1993. When she tried to back out, producer Richard Gilbert Abrahamson sued her for $20 million.
Oh,
The
my
suit
God.
was settled very quickly when Goldberg agreed to star for $7 million, $2 million more than the original agreement.
Still not enough.
Nope.
Most of the actors signed on thinking the dinosaur would be computer enhanced.
Wait, so it's just puppetry?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
You
it's a
can
suit.
really call it that.
It's the exact same as that Jim Henson Dinosaurs TV show.
Yeah, it's a rubber suit,
Yeah.
but probably not made by the Henson
I couldn't
people.
watch
It
that
looks of that caliber.
It's all right?
Yeah.
All right.
The first and only, as of 2012, direct-to-video film to be nominated for a Razzie. So there you go.
Wow.
It's a legend.
Yeah.
A legend I'd not even heard of before this at all. Like, I had no idea. It's still, I can't quite get my head around the fact that it exists.
Well, I guess, it wasn't on DVD. It certainly wasn't on Blu-ray. I don't know if it gets much TV play. I think it's been buried.
It does feel a little bit like we're being punked.
Yes.
Well, we should say, and as your husband pointed out, Jess, there is a novelisation, it turns out, of this film. It does already exist.
We're choosing
Crazy.
to ignore it.
We chose to ignore it, but I'm really interested maybe a bit down the track in sort of picking it up and seeing what they did that we didn't, and vice versa.
Oh my god,
What you
I
really
never
mean
want to
to-
think about this once this is over.
Well, this is
What you're
proof that it's
trying-
not.
What you're trying to say basically is like, I want to pick up the novelisation and go, yes, we did this so much.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, so there is another novelization, so that's proof that we didn't just make this up like Beast Lords. It is a real.
It is a real thing.
film.
Definitely watch the trailer if nothing else. And I'm hoping to catch up on the film maybe soon.
No.
Just a couple of little things so people are clear on how this all works. We've written 11 scenes of the film. Now, these were all selected, and the person behind the scenes who's a really massive part of this, which wouldn't happen without him, is, of course, Tim the Stats Man.
Woo!
We loved him. Tim has produced a 30-odd page document which allowed any of this to happen. He watched the film multiple times. He chose the scenes. He transcribed the scenes. He gave us character descriptions. So that's why we haven't seen the film. We're working off this document that Tim has, which is hopefully true to the novelisation experience.
Yeah, and look, as much as we've suffered, Tim has suffered so
Yeah,
much more.
so-
He has watched this film
Are you okay, Tim?
multiple times.
So
If
huge.
anyone knows Tim, can they please go around to his house and just check on him?
Buy him a beer.
Yes.
So thank you, Tim, so much. You are the best. We've written 2 scenes each, and then Xavier has written a scene, so that's the 11. Now, there are, obviously, it's not the whole book. There is some bridging stuff that is missing, and Tim has written little descriptions of that, and we'll add that in. So it's going to be a big one, so we should probably get going. And this is our version of Theodore Rex, and we were allowed to write in any style that we wanted, incorporating any novelisation tropes. It was not intended to be necessarily a real retail product, or the scenes weren't necessarily intended to all fit together in terms
the
of
idea of
style.
someone buying this is hilarious.
So we've all done our own thing.
And we haven't read one another's things, so
No,
there may be
no.
overlap. There may be completely wildly differing descriptions of people.
Yes.
Hopefully that all adds to the pleasure that you'll experience.
This is all fresh.
The mystique of this final finished product.
So I have scene 1. Shall I kick us off?
Let's go.
So now there is a little prologue here, which is straight from the film. Once upon a time in the future, at midnight tomorrow, billionaire Eliza Kane will launch his new Eden missile to bring on another ice age. After mankind is extinct, Kane will reanimate the pairs of all Earth's animals he keeps frozen in his ark and create his vision of paradise. 1 hour ago, 2 workers escaped from the New Eden compound and are racing to tell the police about Kane's master plan. This is the point where you would turn the page and get chapter 1. Dinosaurs. Why did it have to be fucking dinosaurs? The storm ripped through the forest. Long fingers of lightning streaked across the sky, illuminating their long necks, twisted horns, and rows of massive teeth. Although these teeth were twisted into cartoon grins, they were plastic, garishly painted statues, remnants from a long-abandoned carnival. They posed zero threat, but still, the man they called Edge derided their mocking tone. These dinosaurs may have been fake, but Edge knew full well that the real thing was just around the corner. Water splashed his calves, lapping the edge of his dark trench coat as his long, steady strides unwittingly found another puddle in the dark. Damn it, Edge thought, these are my favourite fucking pants. He made a mental note to send a bill to his employer, Eliza Kane. That crazy billionaire should be able to cough up for a new pair of pants, right? After all, Edge had been his trusted enforcer, chauffeur and go-between for many years now, and he took great pride in knowing that he was perfect for the job. Edge's mother had given birth to him under unfeasibly unusual circumstances. It was a long time ago now, in the early 90s in fact, during those early dinosaur theme park trials. Janine, his mother, was heavily pregnant and against doctors' advice, sitting in the back of a tour car admiring a herd of triceratops. Sure enough, as was common in those days, one of the gargantuan beasts lurched too close to the vehicle, knocking it over a cliff. And there, as the car dangled precariously on the edge of the precipice, the baby was born. Ironically, Aerosmith's new hit single, Living on the Edge, was also playing on the radio. Edge had lived his life on the razor's edge ever since, and he hated fucking dinosaurs. But that was long ago and a lot had changed. Dinosaurs had changed. Now they wore shirts? There was his prey lumbering through the undergrowth, a Tyrannosaurus Rex, but hardly the fabled king of dinosaurs. No, this T-Rex was barely larger than a human, clumsy, oafish, tiny eyes darting around nervously as sweat stains pooled in the pits of his awkwardly contrasting clothes. They were all like this now, fucking dinosaurs, stinking scale faces, overgrown chickens. "Oliver!" Edge called sinisterly. "I have something for you." The T-Rex stopped in his tracks, turning slowly until recognition sparked fear in his beady eyes. "Edge?" Oliver stammered. "No!" It made Edge sick. Was this a T-Rex or a Pussysaurus? Still, he had a job to do. Edge removed a small container from his coat. "A present from Mr. Kane." Oliver instinctively flinched, cowering in the shadows, ineffectually trying to shield his massive face with his tiny comical hands, waiting for the inevitable. But then, a single butterfly, beautiful and fragile, broke free from its casing and flitted a delicate path from Edge's hands to Oliver's snout, where it settled gently. "Ah!" Oliver let out a sigh of relief. Edge smiled. The butterfly exploded. Large chunks of bloody dinosaur flesh tore free from Oliver's skull, painting the tree behind him. Fucking dinosaurs. Edge wished this would be the last of them. And this is the point in the book where they'd miss a line and there'd be those little row of asterisks. And then, another place, another scream, another T-Rex? Theodore Rex, more commonly known by the emasculating moniker Teddy, started from his sleep in fright, waving his tiny claws like a parody of spirit fingers. The pom-pom on the end of his ridiculous nightcap swung wildly as his ungainly head darted from left to right, assessing the threat but seeing nothing but a garishly decorated bedroom. So many questions raced through his head. Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? Was this a dream, a hoax, an imaginary story? Did he have psychic powers or just an overactive imagination? Was this like the time he dreamt he was eating that giant marshmallow? Zippy, his diminutive dog, began barking at Teddy like crazy, no doubt on the verge of a full-blown canine heart attack, sparked by his master's sudden spate of violent squealing. It was a dream. It had to be. No, thought Teddy. Nothing about this feels right. Pulling his dirty great dressing gown tightly across his childish pajamas, Teddy swung his tail awkwardly out of bed, swept up his brick-like portable phone, painstakingly dialed, and made numerous attempts to reach his lack of ears with his tiny arms. "Grid Police Headquarters," said the impatient voice on the other end of the line. "Yeah, this is Teddy Rex, what's up?" He didn't wait for an answer. "I got this strange feeling. Anything weird happened tonight?" "Oh, fuck," thought the dispatch officer. "This guy again, the dinosaur with the strange feelings that keeps us distracted from far more important matters. Why did the grid hire this guy again? Was it dino affirmative action? No wonder they put him in the public relations department. Hiring this idiot was all public relations." "Yeah, murder down at the carnival graveyard," the dispatch officer muttered. "Huh," replied Teddy vacantly. "Yeah," said dispatch, idly thinking about how murder seemed like a pretty appealing concept right now. "Huh," said Teddy again, kind of wondering why he'd even called. "Yeah, there's nothing for you public relation guys, Teddy. They're keeping it real quiet," explained dispatch, not wanting this conversation to go on forever. "Got it," said Teddy slowly. "Yeah," replied dispatch noncommittally. Teddy thought about this. "I'm on my way." Slamming down the phone, Teddy's fears had dissipated. Sure, his murderous dreams had become a reality, but why let that interfere with what was shaping up to be a beautiful day? As he commenced his morning routine, Teddy began to make up silly little songs to distract himself, dancing and gyrating around his impractical apartment. He should have my Amazon reviewer voice. "Put my little rubber duckies, a 3, a 4, in the water," he sang to himself. He wasn't sure what it meant, but it sure was a lot of fun to say. And then, as he kicked off his giant slippers, he announced, a wiggle, push, and they're off." It was to the benefit of no one, not even himself. The bathroom's titular bath was decked out with 4 zany dinosaur feet. Teddy often wondered why humans didn't bathe in baths which had human feet. Were they self-loathing creatures? It didn't make any sense. But today was a shower day. Oh, that's cold, cold, cold. Ah, warm, perfect. Don't flush. Ooh, He hollered as the water hit him. Of course, there was no one else in the apartment to perform this proverbial flush, but one of Teddy's enduring fantasies was that he had a loving partner. Come to think of it, he never used the toilet anyway. His colossal tail would have gotten in the way. Who needed a toilet anyway when you had a spare room to store all your shit? Throwing on his carefully chosen vintage 90s fashions. It was so long ago. In fact, Teddy hadn't even been born, but he still harboured a soft spot for the era, formed from watching countless reruns of Saved by the Bell. Teddy stood at the sink and began talking to himself in the mirror. He was no De Niro. Okay, freshen up here, Teddy. Here we go. Let's see. No stubble as usual. His favourite retro show, however, was Star Trek The Next Generation, where he admired Riker's magnificent beard. One day, he lived in hope. Teddy picked up his toothbrush. A little toothbrush action, he declared to no one in particular. And, the mirror filled with mist as it felt the full force of the foul breath. Like a summer breeze, Teddy lied as the flowers outside the window wilted. Can't forget this! He placed the toothbrush in his pocket without even using it, which to be fair was nigh impossible with his stumpy arms. One final look at his reflection and looking good. It was a sad delusion, but it got him through each otherwise intolerable day. Sadder still was the comic book cover that had earned pride of place on his living room wall. Dino Detective, Dino Against Crime. Well, dreamer. He sighed longingly, staring at the fictional Dino Dick. Teddy's dreams, when they weren't predicting gruesome murders, were of one day becoming a detective himself. The naive power fantasy of the comic book fueled him as he never really understood the true ramifications of the job. He turned to his dog. Okay, Zippy, Teddy's going out. Wish me luck. Zero response. Little kissy? Oh, sweet Zippy likes a little kissy. Zippy failed to respond, but was soiled with a kiss regardless. After a moment of awkward lingering, Zippy finally let out a bark. Okay, I'm off, promised Teddy. But then, almost forgot. Turning back, Teddy ferreted out a remote control and pressed its center button. Cookie? Of course a fucking cookie, thought Zippy in his own unique dog language. Why else would I stick around this nightmarish hellhole? The self-built cookie shooter on the counter obediently fired a cookie which Teddy plucked out of the air. Macadamia! Yes! The apartment door closed behind him, leaving Zippy alone and unsatisfied. That is scene number one.
Oh my god! Now, I'm assuming you did what I did, which is to not change the dialogue at all.
No, all the dialogue.
All the dialogue is real.
Is real.
What the fuck?
I did.
That was magnificent.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Good stuff.
Why do I have to go second? That's not up to
Alright, scene two.
Actual tears in my eyes.
tears.
It's beautiful.
There's Courtney. Are you close enough?
Oh, it was amazing. Switchboard.
Yeah.
We're all, but
Yeah.
for the listener, we're all pretty much jammed around this
Single microphone.
This microphone as like a family around a Christmas fire.
And we're down.
On the hottest day of the year.
It is really fucking hot here.
6 o'clock in the morning, it was 23 degrees. 23 degrees
That
Australian.
is some bullshit, son. That's not good.
And we're downstairs as well. We're not in the normal recording place, so you'll hear all sorts of strange stuff. But hopefully it'll all work out.
kangaroos.
All right.
Everything tries to kill you here, including the weather.
Yes, it's true.
Alright, so scene 2. In the darkest time of night, when there isn't a cloud to be seen, the starless sky of the city can appear as if just beyond the reach of the tallest buildings hangs an unnatural ceiling. Barely visible against the inky backdrop stands two figures armoured entirely in black, a man and a woman, their intention focused below them. The man was first to speak. Don't cook your circuits again, Coltrane. I'm sick of always dragging you in for repair. Coltrane ignored Rogan's derogatory remark, instead staring fixedly in space as she was focusing inwards. Downloading outlaw combustion vehicles, she stated. Her cybernetic enhancements allowed her to instantaneously access the internet and police records, but those were the most standard of modifications these days. Transhumanists, as was the preferred term, were becoming more common all the time. But a man like Rogan was old-fashioned, longing for a world that was increasingly shrinking under the inexorable force that is modernity. Cyborgs, dinosaurs, mutants. He would be glad to finally retire next week and take over the old family farm. I really do hope he retires. I don't know what happens later on, or he dies. I'm just going to assume that's what happened.
Well, you have cursed him now.
Yeah, he's cursed. Yeah.
Yeah.
When Coltrane's eyes returned their focus, they were met with the sight of a large truck in pursuit of a man on rollerblades. Had this been any other place at any other time, this might have been considered a strange tableau, but in this town it was just another Friday. A comically clownish voice could be heard emitting from the vehicle. "Attention shoppers, in-store special at aisle 9, clones are half off." Rogan's usual grim expression briefly softened. "Seriously, Coltrane, are you sure your CPUs are ready for action?" "Oh yeah." Coltrane, as if to emphasize her point, decided at that moment to pick up the large harpoon. That hadn't been there previously, just so you know, in that scene it wasn't visible. "By midnight tomorrow, it's the end of the world. Somebody help me!" The voice of the man on the rollerblades rang out in perfect Doppler effect. The gunshot that followed, however, did not. The truck screeched to a halt, and the passengers within wasted no time collecting the body whose last breath was still being exhaled. These people, if they could be deemed as such, were known as Zapheads. Not much was known about them for certain, mutated beings that lurked into the dark corners of the city. Had they once been human, had disease or human interference created them? It was a popular source of speculation. "Gotcha," explained the chipmunk voice of the leader of the group, known only as Spinner. He watched the Zapheads place the body on the table before he could get any close. Before he could get any closer, however, Coltrane crashed through the sunroof of the truck. "What was the point," he thought, "of going to all the effort of stealing a truck that specifically had a sunroof if no one's going to keep a lookout?" Coltrane effortlessly punched the nearest Zaphead unconscious before drawing her gun on Spinner. "Gentlemen, so good to see you. I'm from the grid police." Spinner, in turn, brandished the nearest weapon he could reach, which happened to be an electric knife. "Are you collecting for the policeman's ball?" He evidently thought that remark was genuinely witty. And if he laughed, so too did his Zapheads, whether they shared his sense of comedy or not. Coltrane rolled her eyes. "Humor, humor." Spinner's one eye motioned to the gun. "Put that thing away or somebody could get hurt." "Well then, I suggest you not move, huh?" Coltrane wondered if he even needed the eye patch he wore, or did he simply believe it made him look more intimidating? Spinner was a small, balding man-child. He was certainly unbalanced, but it was a mystery as to how he held command over the Zapheads. She kept talking, trying to keep Spinner distracted while Rogan took care of the driver in front. "You've been observed, you've been seen, spotted, caught, committing a crime, so you're under arrest." Before she could act, however, the truck lost control, throwing everyone within to the floor. The next thing Coltrane knew, the table had been overturned, deliberately it seemed, as the Zapheads were now using it as a shield while unleashing a barrage of gunfire on her, forcing her to quickly seek what little shelter the truck had. Once she was out of their reach, she realized she had dropped her weapons in the fall. Time to improvise, she thought, as she set fire to some tanks nearest to her. But before she could roll them towards the Zapheads, this, by the way, is a terrible idea within an enclosed space like a truck.
Yes.
I put that in brackets. Of course I did. Spinner pulled a lever, sending Coltrane rolling out of the truck on a trolley. "Ups-a-daisy," he called after her. The firing continued, only now Coltrane was completely exposed. She wondered momentarily why she was still keeping speed with the truck before noticing that there was a connecting cable, which she effortlessly shot into in the first try, letting herself slide back until she gently bumped into a wall. "Oh yeah." It was good to be back, she thought, as she watched Rogan jump from the truck before it ran into the danger signs and crashed into a collection of barrels. The Zapheads wasted no time bursting from the flaming interior of the truck, but curiously not without bringing the corpse with them. "Hey!" Rogan barked after them, clutching his arm. The Zapheads froze, dropping the body and skittering off like the rodents they were. Coltrane ran up to her partner. "I thought you had the front." "I thought you had the back," he replied. "Oh, like you had the front." "Like you had the back." They both started at the massive explosion from the vehicle. "Nothing like a welcome back party," laughed Rogan. Coltrane's smile faded as she scanned the crime scene. "These were not engine scavengers. Body hunters?" Rogan suggested. "Probably. I only have one American accent, I'm sorry, they sound the same." So Rogan knelt down and ran his scanner of the DNA, the victim. "DNA encrypted clone. ID unknown. Serial number unknown. Manufacturer unknown. Recommended Medivac for final ID," the device said. Rogan glanced up quickly at Coltrane, like as if he didn't exist. That doesn't make any sense, she said as she pressed her headset. Coltrane downloading. I need a medivac. She says downloading as if calling and downloading are the things. It hurt me. Yeah, headquarters, medivac, came the indifferent voice on the other side of the radio. Yeah, I need an idea on the murder victim. Yeah, said the voice on the other side. Have the knife contact me as soon as he's got the information. Thank you. Mere seconds passed before Coltrane received a call. Opening up her communicator, the face of Captain Alaric's face floated above the holographic pad. He was not pleased. You two call yourselves cops. You're a circus act. Sir, Rogan straightened up. Upload Katie's performance test to my terminal. If the numbers check out, you'll be street legal again, Coltrane. Oh yeah, she said. Again? But this time sarcastically. Welcome back to the grid, Katie, said Rogan. Check your circuits, Coltrane. Any biochip. But the communicator cut out before Alaric could finish. Coltrane said, I love it when he does that. I do. Okay.
Definitely a Peter David vibe forming.
I'm always Peter David.
In these scenes.
So what is going on in this film so far?
We may never know.
Well, that's our other main
They're
character,
totally unconnected.
Whoopi Goldberg. Yeah, but imagine those two worlds colliding. This wacky dinosaur and this cop on the beach.
Shenanigans!
I can't wait. Tim has given us some linking text so that we know what happens between Courtney's scene and Jess's scene. Teddy arrives at the carnival graveyard crime scene. The murder victim is a dinosaur, which is highly unusual, but there are no clues and the police are trying to keep this from the press. Spinner, leader of the Zapheads, gives Edge an amulet taken from the man they chased down in scene 2. The news they lost the body is not met with approval. Teddy goes to the New Eden fundraiser to talk to the commissioner about the dinocide. Coltrane catches up with Sebastian, a kid in his early teens with whom she's friends and who wants her to go out with his dad. She gets summoned to the fundraiser and Sebastian tries to convince her to come to the playground the next day for a surprise. His dad's cock, probably. At the fundraiser, Teddy tries to convince the commissioner to let him investigate the dinocide, saying that humans and dinosaurs can overcome their differences and work together and make dreams come true.
If only they believe.
The commissioner's deputy, Summers, convinces the commissioner that putting Teddy on the case undercover could be a huge PR success, and the commissioner buys it. Teddy gets paired up with Coltrane, who is not happy about joining up with a dinosaur, including one who's not really a detective. Take it away, Jess.
I just want to say that I think it's the commissioner is played by the original Shaft.
Oh, is this Alex Summers?
I think that, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was
Can't remember
imagining
his
like
name.
my mental image was like J. Jonah Jameson. That was
Yeah.
my mental commissioner.
Well, so Alaric is the commissioner, there's the other guy. There's two, like, kind of boss guys, I guess?
Yeah, it's very unclear what roles they actually play.
Yeah.
I'm so confused at this point. I have no idea what's going on in the
Characters
movie.
show up.
I think
and
I've got it at the moment.
Yeah,
I think I'm on this. Yeah.
All right, let me see if I can
Don't
help.
fuck it up.
The neon lights of bars and convenience stores blinked lazily, reflected in the oily puddles on the street. A cat paused to sniff suspiciously at a paper bag that had once held a tuna sandwich. Another sniff confirmed that the sandwich had contained capers and dill. Suddenly he darted out of the way as an ostentatious limousine rolled down the street. He peered resentfully at the car. If he could read, he would have rolled his eyes at the license plate. Almighty. If he had been invited inside, he would have turned up his nose and sauntered away. Despite the evening dress and high polish of those inside the limousine, his feline sense would have told him that these were not safe companions for small mammals. Inside the limousine, Alex Summers lounged with his legs spread comfortably. If Oliver Rex would have squealed about your master plan, nobody would have believed him. But with the nose job Edge gave him, we don't have to worry about that anymore, do we? He sniggered at his own joke. Nose job, he thought. What a clever euphemism. Dr. Shade regarded him coldly. Self-important windbag, she thought. Little squid, you're supposed to make sure your police pals stay clear. That is your job. And for which you will follow us into the new world? Eleazar Kane intoned, like an Old Testament prophet except German. Summers bridled. For your information, I've used my own powers of persuasion to convince the commissioner to assign the department's token dino to your messy dinocide, he announced in an offended tone. He intensely disliked having his own importance questioned. He was an only child whose mother doted on him to an unhealthy degree. Theodore Rex, Kane inquired. Theodore Rex? Kane inquired suspiciously. Yes, exactly, Summers confided pompously. And I've also teamed him up with a burnt-out gun. This is going to be trouble, I can feel it, Dr. Shade intoned portentously in her chilly English accent. Hey, Coltrane and Teddy Rex will blow this case, I guarantee it, and we will just sail away, Summers announced optimistically. The limousine pulled to a halt in front of an elegant townhouse, the kind most cops can't afford unless they're being funded externally. Ah, my stop. Well, midnight tomorrow. Ta-ta! As he left the ostentatious vehicle, Edge twisted around from the driver's seat, an ugly look on his face. Not that this was unusual, his face being an entirely appropriate location for ugliness. He held up an amulet. This is from Adam, he sneered nastily. Edge? Kane intoned warningly. Dr. Shade's cool eyes narrowed. You do realise the missile launches to midnight tomorrow? Edge shrugged. That's your problem. In Edge's mind, there were two kinds of problems. His problems and problems that didn't matter. There's no leeway, insisted Shade in her cold English voice. All right, don't get your knickers in a twist, Edge drawled, thinking that Dr. Shade's knickers were probably like something Mary Poppins would wear. My people are working on it. He basked in the warm glow of the thought that he had people. His people. People who belonged to him. Shade's icy British laugh broke into his reverie. Ha! Don't call Zapheads people. They belong in cages. Edge snarled, his upper lip lifting above his teeth like a demented jungle cat in a futuristic post-punk clothing. Well then call me some better ones! Kane interrupted this battle of wills. You know how I feel about failure. His voice was quiet, but no less powerful for it. Edge snapped to attention. Yes, sir, he barked. It reeks of imperfection? Kane's voice rose in fury as he contemplated the idea of imperfection. It was abhorrent to his Germanic mind. Autobahns, techno music, sausages, these things were perfect. Human error was not. What do you want me to do? Whined Edge cautiously. Kane regained his composure. Just have them followed, he suggested gently. I don't want anyone to sense our concern. Edge fiddled with his futuristic communicator, reflecting that communication was easier than ever in this future age of technology. Spinner! Spinner! He hissed. Unfortunately, Spinner was not reflecting on technology or communication or anything really. His mind was the kind of blank state that Buddhist monks work for years to attain. Luckily for Spinner, this state of mind came naturally to him. Unluckily for Edge, it rendered him less than effective. Edge's image filled the screen in the hideout. Over here! Psst! Wake up! Get your finger out of your nose! Spinner! Spinner finally jerked to attention. Yes, Mr. Edge? Edge snarled. Listen, I'm going to give you toads a shot at redemption. Spinner looked confused. You shut up! Screeched Edge, his patience wearing thin. Listen, I want you to keep your beady eye on the gun and Rex. Look, but don't touch. Whatever you say, sir, parroted Spinner obediently, almost stabbing himself with a lethal-looking knife. He stuck his tongue out at the image. What a jerkhole, he thought. And scene.
Wow.
By the way, Edge looks like Tommy Wiseau, just in case.
Oh, really? Oh.
So
And he does this ha laugh all the time.
film feels like it was written by Tommy Wiseau. Like he was the script doctor that came in to go over the dialogue.
You guys, I've hired this guy. He's just a young guy, but I reckon he's pretty great.
A lot of the dialogue feels like it's been translated into Japanese and then back again. You just read it and you're like, it's sort of how people talk, but not quite.
And people will say the same thing over and over, like, yeah, well.
Alright, a brief note from Tim and then Courtney, your final scene. Teddy and Coltrane go to the museum and find out about the dead dinosaur, awkwardly bonding, or not, along the way. Courtney.
Since Elazar Kane has successfully resurrected dinosaurs, the role of museums and paleontologists in society had undergone radical changes in the past few decades. Dr. Armitage was present when it all happened. It had been an exciting time, after spending so long speculating over the remains of these creatures. To actually see dinosaurs walking the earth once more had been something no paleontologist would have ever dreamed of coming true. Sadly, it hadn't been feasible to bring them back as they had originally been. Their Brobdingnagian proportions alone would have made captivity extremely difficult. Why you would need an entire island to house such a park. Instead, Eleazar created domestic imitations, about a tenth of their original size, featherless, with neotenous features like big, bright eyes, but only marginally larger brains. The world had been in a dinosaur craze, and museums had been busier than ever, but the excitement had quite died down at this point. Eleazar's amusements now needed to get jobs and integrate with society. Armitage felt for them. They were brought into this world as a novelty with no real consideration as to what to do with them once the unlikely goal had been accomplished. These days, Dr. Armitage's job crossed over many unlikely fields. She often felt more like a veterinarian or police forensic analyst. She was just preparing to determine the cause of death of an Oliver Rex when she was interrupted by visitors. Poor little guy. A young Tyrannosaurus looked over the corpse with pity. Oh no, I should be like, poor little guy. There we go. Sorry, continuity, guys. You knew him? asked his human companion. Well, yes and no. What do you mean, yes and no? You either knew him or you didn't. Well, I've seen him around, but I didn't know him personally. Can I help you? Armitage interjected. Yeah, the dinosaur replied. Grid Police, Coltrane stated in a more official tone. Who are you? Dr. Armitage, head dinosaurologist. She still felt a little strange using that term. Dinosaurology in contemporary use now refers to the study of living dinosaurs. Hi, said the living dinosaur right in front of her cheerfully. Hi, she said incredulously and looked at Coltrane. He's a detective? For now. Katie! Theodore looked hurt. Be nice! He had it in on his phone, going really ridiculous with that. I'm sorry. Let's cut to the chase. Yeah, what do you have on the victim? Armitage put down the note she had been reading. He died from an explosion close to his snout. I really haven't had a chance to look at him. Ooh, excuse me, said Coltrane unnecessarily sarcastically. Teddy placed his tiny hands on the body. Doctor, may I? Help yourself, thought, though Armitage was entirely unsure as to what he was going to do. Thank you. May you what? Coltrane was equally clueless and unprepared for the series of strange breathing and wheezing sounds that emitted while his eyes were closed as if in a trance. Yes. Then he suddenly turned and reached for a long pair of tweezers, and he inserted them in. I'm lightheaded now. Sorry. Okay, continue. He inserted them into the nostril cavity of the corpse to extract a tiny fragment of a butterfly wing, as if he knew it had been there all along. Do dinosaurs have telepathy now? Is that what I just saw? Does he have telekinesis that he can tell me about too? Wondered Coltrane. There we go. Send this to Captain Ulrich at headquarters. See if he can reconstruct whatever killed our friend here. Then we'll have our lead. He said as if it were the most normal thing in the world. No, seriously, she thought. We're gonna act like this is normal. We're not gonna talk about it. What about Prince? She asked, deciding it was best to focus on the task at hand. Whatever explanation he would have given wouldn't have helped, probably. Prince, you see the scale pattern on our tails are all different and distinct. Headquarters computer? Police dispatch responded immediately. Hello, Teddy. I need a tail print ID, please. By for a Halifax, will you? Oh, and I need you to do this as quickly as you can for me, he requested as he scanned the tail. Coltrane never understood why tails were used instead of fingerprints. I mean, the whole purpose of fingerprinting was that they touch everything. I mean, how much does a tail usually touch in a given day? Scale print ID confirmed. T-Rex ID Oliver Rex. What was the point of surnames if they all have the same?
It took me so long to work out they weren't brothers.
Yes! I thought they were related.
Yes.
They're the same species. That's
Yeah, that
wonderful.
confusion actually happened.
Racist.
Yeah. Scale print ID confirmed. T-Rex, ID Oliver Rex, cloned at New Eden, lives at prehistoric place with Molly Rex, replied the dispatch. Huh, Molly Rex? Teddy seemed surprised. Coltrane asked, that somebody you know? Don't I wish she sings at the nightclub at prehistoric place. The Extinct Species Club. Like most nightclubs, it was drenched in neon light, the drinks were expensive, and there was music being played a little too loudly. But that's where the familiarity ended. There were plants all over the place. The patrons, most of whom, of course, were dinosaurs, were snacking on this vegetation. The furniture, too, was made to accommodate their size. Seats were made larger and lower, and the wait staff, unlike their human counterparts, were unable to load anything onto their tiny arms, and so pushed along tiny trolleys instead. Coltrane felt out of place and wondered why the few humans she spotted around the club would visit. Teddy, on the other hand, looked much at ease, breathing out with a happy sigh. It drew her attention to the air around her. What is that smell? Clean, unfiltered air. Everything here is good for you. One of the waitresses was a Stygimoloch, which I will add is my favourite late Cretaceous dinosaur. It's not actually described what kind of dinosaur she is, nor could I remember, so I just, use my imagination.
Yay!
Yay! Imagination. One of the waitresses was a Stygimoloch, petite, even for her own kind. If you want to know, Stygimolochs are only about 5 feet tall. Okay. Her domed crown of horns had clearly been recently polished and engraved with intricate patterns. She made her wear it over. Hey, Teddy, she said enthusiastically. Hey, Tina, was there anyone Teddy didn't know around here? How are you? I'm fine, you? I'm fine. Soft skin, I see.
Great dialogue.
Soft skin, I see. Teddy introduced her. Her name is Katie Coltrane. Can we get the tour, please? Walk with me. Welcome to the Extinct Species Club. If a species shows up here, it's history. Yeah, well, you must be running out of space, said Coltrane. Yeah, well, more species are vanishing every day, admitted Tina. Okay. Well, maybe Mr. Kane will bring these species back, just like he did with the dinosaurs, suggested Teddy hopefully. You said a mouthful, she said, as she approached the bar. Okay, Boobaloo, let's talk liquids here. We've got glacier, natural, or fizzy water. That's H2O. I'll take what's on tap, thank you, said Coltrane. Sorry, I don't dance. Then Tina let out a long, awkward laugh. Kill me. Anyway, I'm kidding. Listen, find yourselves a table, make yourselves comfortable. They made their way over to a shared table. Across from Coltrane sat an Ankylosaurus who was making eyes at her. That thing at the table just clacked at me. Oh, that's Grok. He likes soft skins. He thinks you're kind of cute. Ew. Brilliant, she thought. She then turned her attention to the food in front of her. It was barely distinguishable from the decorative greenery around her. What is this? This is great. This is hydroponic seaweed and krill. No toxins, chemicals, or dyes. You gotta try some, Teddy offered. No, thank you. She screwed up her nose at the smell. Come on. No. I don't want it. Really, put it down. All right. Teddy gave up and had the seaweed for himself. After a moment, she turned to him again. Can I ask you a personal question? Sure. I thought you people, ate meat. Oh, I'm kind of on the wagon, It's not like the old days, Katie, with herds of duckbills roaming through the plain. And you guys were eating them all. Teddy looked offended. Oh, and you humans are such a deal. The only times you soft skin seem to be paying attention to other creatures is to shoot them, eat them, or wear them. Am I right? Are you listening to me? That's all in caps lock. He suddenly gets really aggressive for some reason. Coltrane was in fact not listening to him at that present moment. As at that present moment, Grok's flirtations had evolved into more emphatic gestures. I'm sorry, I can't, I don't, what is he doing? It's a whole thing. Teddy shook his head. We don't get out much, do we? Is there a lot of dialogue missing, though? Okay, Coltrane stood up and said, no, I don't. Great. Turning to leave, she said, I'm gonna see what I can find out in the rest of the room. I gotta get out of his eyesight. He's making me nervous. Check her out. Fine, freshen up. I don't know what any of this means. Oh man, Coltrane began the daunting task of maneuvering the crowded dance floor. Avoiding the tails was the challenge. The music ended as the announcer walked on stage. And now, clack your claws for the bodacious, cretaceous, Mesozoic Mama Miss Molly Rex. I'm not saying that ever again. Massive pink plumes of ostrich feathers opened to reveal a Tyrannosaurus Rex, dressed in the most elaborate and ostentatious, and dare I say ridiculous, evening gown and headdress Coltrane had ever seen. She began to sing I'm No Angel, to which Coltrane rolled her eyes. But Teddy was engaged, he was entranced, he was even enraptured. Really, when you consider it, dinosaurs should not be capable of speech, let alone singing. And Eleazar had considered that, of course, and modified them to have such advanced communication and performing abilities. Before the song was over, however, Coltrane decided she had had enough of attracting unwanted interest from dinosaurs. Let's go, she ordered. Teddy, who took a second to snap back into reality, police business, right? Yeah. Dressing room, coming. Teddy staggered out of his seat and quickly grabbed some flowers as he followed Coltrane backstage. Molly sat in front of a vanity mirror, retouching her makeup. Her dressing room had many other costumes strewn everywhere and had a distinct scent of perfume hanging in the air. Teddy awkwardly approached her, presenting his gift. Flowers from a fan. Molly knew full well where they had come from, but was outwardly gracious nonetheless. Whoa, thank you. Have we met? I've seen you around. Coltrane interrupted. Where are the grid police? I knew it, she exclaimed. Last night I fell asleep and all of a sudden I got this flash. Teddy's eyes grew wide. Me too. Dinosaurs feel for each other. Yeah, they do. They were lost in each other's eyes while Coltrane rolled hers. Which seems to be the only thing she does. I think that's Whoopi Goldberg, really. After a moment, Molly excused herself and made her way behind a dividing screen. The room was narrow and Teddy started babbling nervously as she slipped past him. Don't bruise the taffeta! Wide load coming through! Oh, shouldn't have said that, sorry. Molly was shocked and whispered to herself, Whoa, I'll slap him down. Coltrane once more had to intervene. Hey, come on, we're here to looking for a killer. Molly popped her head from behind the screen. Whoa, killer? Why is whoa used so much? I don't... Anyway, Teddy regained what little composure he had. Yeah, Mrs. Rex, I'm sorry to say that your husband, Oliver, was murdered last night. Did he have any enemies that you knew of? He asked. Wait a second. Ollie wasn't my husband. He was my roommate, she corrected once the words had sunk in. What? Great! No, wait, bad. I feel for you. He really hated himself right now. Why was the ground not swallowing him up? What exactly was he? Coltrane asked. A pussycat? No, I mean, what did he do? Oh, he was an entertainer. Oh? Teddy was curious. Song and dance dino, worked kiddie parties and conventions, and mostly. Not an uncommon job that the first generation of dinosaurs were designed to fulfill. Did he have any hobbies, outside interest? He inquired further. He worked for New Eden. It was in his heart to heal the earth. Now Coltrane was interested. Did you say New Eden? Mm-hmm. Teddy lost control of his mouth again. Well, thank you, Miss Rex. You're so beautiful. You're so helpful. Molly finally emerged from behind the screen in a new ensemble. Yo, say, why don't you come to the Oliver's recycling here tomorrow? Coltrane interjected. Wait a minute. You said you didn't know he was dead and suddenly you're having a funeral? I find that a bit odd. Nope, speedy funerals are a dino custom. Teddy nodded. Yeah, could you ixnay on the funeral, please? I don't know what that means. Yeah, could you get your breath, out of my face, I'll be outside. Excuse me, said Coltrane as she turned to leave. Teddy remained behind, stammering. Like I said, if you think of anything... Oh, I'll definitely get a hold of you. She batted her lashless eyelids at him. Listen, you can just call me Teddy, right? Teddy, okay. I'll see you at the funeral. Teddy felt a bit lightheaded. Okay, I gotta get some excuse me, I really gotta go. I'll call you, see ya. Once alone, Molly sniffed the bouquet, then quickly gobbled it all down.
Sweet! Fuck this movie.
I love the stuff about the changing roles of paleontologists. That was brilliant.
Yeah, I just wanted, I can't help myself. I have to put the realistic logic. I like building societies and mythology and stuff.
In my mind, Tina the dinosaur is Fran Drescher.
I would have just talked about the dinosaur boner that he was like trying to hide all through that.
I find it so weird the stuff that this film has chosen to explain.
Yes.
Yes.
Like the bit about the dinosaur funeral. Why is that important that it's speedy?
That's like the one thing they actually explain about their culture.
It's like,
And how long has their culture been going? Like
that they
and
have like,
this tradition.
traditions.
Exactly.
The 90s, apparently?
Yeah, exactly.
So Tim links by saying that Coltrane accuses Teddy of being lovesick with regards to Molly. Teddy denies it unconvincingly. They split up for the night, Coltrane going to the lab to find out about the dead human and telling Teddy to go straight home. On the drive home, though, he's attacked by zap heads who destroy his van, that's the worst kind of head, and cover it and Teddy in fire extinguisher foam.
Aww, pranksters.
Coltrane asks why he didn't pull his gun. Teddy says he doesn't believe in violence as a response. Edge is unimpressed.
And he wants to be a cop.
Well, he doesn't understand
Career
it.
move.
He has a comic about a cop.
Yeah.
Only a policeman in England.
Edge is unimpressed by the zap heads and tortures two of them, giving Spinner one last chance not to screw up. Teddy and Coltrane return to Grid Police headquarters to get a new vehicle. They get teased and mocked by the other officers. The Commissioner is furious with them since they have no leads and he needs results urgently. Teddy goes to get a new outfit. And that's the scene that I have. Here we go. In a darkened room at police headquarters, Ella sat frustrated at her computer terminal. Every case, every criminal, every interaction, it all felt like nonsense. What did any of it mean? What had happened to this city? Sometimes she felt like just taking out her gun, and life has a knack for seeing you at your lowest and kicking you in the ribs. And so it was that Teddy, a lumbering, awkward T-Rex, now frazzled, dishevelled and covered in fire extinguisher foam, sauntered into the room as if he belonged there. "Hey, Ella!" he chirped as if he had to further announce his freakish appearance. Holy fucking shit, this is just what I need, thought Ella grimly. They don't pay me enough for this bullshit, and yet I feel somewhat sorry for and maternally protective of this wretched creature, which shows you just how fucked up my life is right now. "Hey, Teddy," she said, "what happened to you?" Teddy beamed. "Ha, don't ask. I'm here for a new look." Thank fucking Christ. At least she avoided the long-winded story. But wait, did he just say a new look? Really? Asked Ella incredulously. "Oh yeah," grinned Teddy. "I'm on my first case. How about that?" How about that? Seriously? Ella couldn't believe her ears. Teddy? A detective? They let this dino dick be a dino dick? Untrained, reckless, dangerous. What next? Was the department going to start arming babies with shotguns? Here, meet the new chief of police. He's a parakeet. What the fuck? "That's wonderful. Good luck," Ella said. "Thank you," replied Teddy. He stood there proudly, like a toddler who had just shat himself. Ella scrambled for more words. "An undercover dinosaur, right?" Teddy failed to pick up on her sarcasm. One of these days, Ella thought, I'm just going to get out my gun and... "Yeah, listen," said Teddy unnecessarily. "I've got to blend in, okay?" "Yeah, right," thought Ella, like a turd in a punch bowl. "Ooh," she cooed. "Go to the zoo." She'd already been reprimanded twice in the past for racism, but Ella didn't give a fuck anymore. "Ella," laughed Teddy, characteristically oblivious to her contempt. Ella sighed. She may as well get this over with. Teddy was one of those farts that lingered. "Step right up. Go ahead." This excited the dinosaur. "All right, here I go." As Ella readied her computer, Teddy stepped onto the large circular platform that basked beneath a dazzling array of lights. When the police department first spent $13 million of taxpayers' money on the Fashionator 5000, a lot of people had gotten upset. Questions were raised. Why do the police need a multi-million-dollar machine that creates clothing in the first place? Weren't traditional methods of getting dressed better? Well, who was laughing now? Ready? Asked Ella, fully prepared to initiate the system regardless. Teddy's excitement was palpable. He'd been wearing the same ensemble for years. Okay, Ella, dress me up. Ella typed like a motherfucker. She battered each key like an aggressive game of whack-a-mole. She'd need a new keyboard after this. She shook sweat off her head like a Saint Bernard at the beach. Lights flashed and changed colours as Teddy's clothing began to miraculously morph. Now make me look nice, okay? He muttered anxiously. I've got this very picky partner, besides being loud and obnoxious and very pushy. Teddy, suddenly wary of Ella's racism record, quickly added, she's a joy to work with, just in case. Suddenly, Teddy was wearing an outfit that would have been more at home in Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries, complete with horned helmet, spear, and shield. Despite being ridiculously inappropriate to his duties, he couldn't help but sing operatically, amusing only himself. The $13 million had only covered the actual Fashionator 5000 machine. Each outfit that you then programmed into the console was downloaded at an additional and unsurprisingly steep cost. Many had assumed that the Fashionator would only be used to provide specialist police uniforms, and yet the department had spent an additional $5 million buying a huge array of fantastic costumes, of which the Valkyrie was only the tip of the iceberg. This caused a second wave of renewed public outrage, something that this time the police had no reasonable response to. Ella! Yelled Teddy, regaining his meager senses. This is not undercover! Push the button! Ella bashed at the keys like they were baby harp seals' heads. Now Teddy was dressed like a stereotypical Mexican bandito, sombrero, fake moustache and all. Great, now we're both going to get done for racism. Although, I could sure go a taco. Ella! Begged Teddy. Undercover, por favor, please. Although he did kind of dig the moustache. Ella began giggling uncontrollably at how ridiculous her life had become, and they were both interrupted by the sudden entrance of the scowling and hard-assed Katie. She'd no doubt be angered by such shenanigans, but that didn't stop Ella from transforming Teddy into a broad Hawaiian stereotype, decked out with hideous flowered shirt, grass skirt, and lei. Although exasperated by the situation, Teddy never found a racial stereotype he couldn't mock, so he began seductively dancing while singing, Undercover now, maha aloha! Katie Coltrane was too old for this shit. He's a cop, she reprimanded, although it sounded silly when said out loud. You gotta make him look like a real cop. Inside her head, Katie fumed. Don't pretend to me like this whole charade means something. Who the fuck are you to pretend there's reason in this crazy house? She cranked the racial stereotype knob even further, transforming Teddy into a Scotsman with kilt bagpipes and a jaunt tam o' shanter. Teddy couldn't resist a chance to give it to the Scots. I'm getting a wee bit of breeze in my lowlands, lassie, he jibed. Work with me, will ya? Ella sighed. Fuck this shit. Time to get that taco. Alright, she conceded. I think these will do fine. She pressed the single key that would have resolved all of this in the first place. Instantly, Teddy found himself in a new jacket, turtleneck, jeans, and sneakers. Yeah, they look good, lied Katie. You look like a real cop. Did he really, though? Wondered Ella. Was it worth even thinking about anymore? Pleased with his fresh studs, Teddy began preening. I'm too sexy for my clothes, he crooned, referencing an obscure old song that was long forgotten by the others. Oh well, thought Ella, at least I've got fantastic tits.
The costume, by the way, is almost identical to the one he had originally.
That whole scene, you know, Walt Disney used to go through the scripts of films and say, does this scene further the plot? And even if it was a fantastic song, whatever it was, he'd say, we've got to cut it. It doesn't further the plot. This is not a fantastic scene.
Walt Disney would have been extremely upset.
He must be upset with Frozen, my god.
Cultural.
I picked my scenes quite late. Could not believe this scene was not taken.
It just made me mad. I read it and I was like, oh, fuck off.
I just love that scene. I didn't realise Ella hadn't been established though, so I didn't say much else about her.
No, it kind of did.
I thought it
said
went
a
well.
lot.
Yeah. I think you probably said a lot more than the film said about it.
Alright, so Teddy and Coltrane find out their new vehicle is a garbage truck where Teddy has to...
Why?
Where Teddy... Undercover! Where Teddy has to ride in the back with all the garbage. Appropriate. They go to see Sebastian play street hockey. The watching Zap heads note Coltrane's connection with the kid, which Kane and his cronies could use. So Coltrane and Teddy go to interview Kane. Scene 6, Lizzy Unpronounceable.
Alright, so I chose my scenes fairly early on, but I chose them because I chose the scenes that I understood the least. So I can try to come to terms with this film and also these terrible scenes. Awful scenes. So bear with me, you guys, because this could get rough. The room was lit dimly around the edges with warm orange light. The public-facing areas of the enigmatic company closed for the day. The large reception desk sat in the middle of a sea of blue-grey carpet, an imposing wedge of glossy marble. The two figures behind the desk were dwarfed by the visual comparison. The company had gone paperless a year ago. After the last fax machine had been discarded and the full complement of wires and modems installed, there really was no reason behind such a large desk, other than to intimidate anyone who happened through the sliding doors of New Eden. The warmth of the orange light stopped short of the desk. Instead, two faces were illuminated by the harsh blue light projecting out of the computer screen at which they were staring. The sharp peaks and valleys of Dr. Shade's attractive face were exaggerated by the light as she leaned towards the screen, one hand on the desk in front of her and one hand on the back of her assistant's chair. The assistant sat with her back straight and face passive and stared intently at the same images that were preoccupying Dr. Shade. Dr. Shade inhaled slowly and deliberately, as if she were gathering her thoughts with her breath, and opened her mouth to speak. The assistant tensed, and her eyes flicked to the clock on the wall. She could just make out the time through the glare of the computer screen, a little before 7 p.m. She just had to keep her cool a little longer, and then it would all be over. Dr. Shade spoke clearly. Freeze the elephants first. Dr. Shade stood up straight, her arms falling to her sides and chin rising. She looked down her elegant nose at the computer screen, at the oblivious elephants swaying back and forth in their pens in the secret laboratory. When she spoke again, it was more to herself than to her assistant. Midnight is only 5 hours away. The assistant drew a slow breath. She had joined the company only a week after graduation. She had been offered several graduate positions in several high-profile firms. Her immaculate grades and excellent letters of recommendation from her professors had ensured that she was in high demand. However, there was one letter of offer that had stood out from the rest. Thinking back to it, she could not explain what it was that had drawn her to that envelope, or that letter, or to this company. All she knew was that it had been the biggest mistake of her young life. Within a month of joining the company, she had a feeling as if things were not all that they seemed. The organization was world famous for its pioneering work in the fields of cloning and rejuvenating extinct and near-extinct species. She had researched New Eden and its esteemed founder, Mr. Kane, during her time as a student. However, she soon suspected that she had only skimmed the surface of a very well-constructed public facade. Underneath the altruistic and pioneering exterior writhed 100 dirty secrets of the mistreatment of thousands of innocent test animals. The first time she had seen the grisly outcomes of a failed laboratory test, she had sat in the restroom for an hour, not sure whether she would cry or expunge her lunch. She had tried to talk to her colleagues about it, but she was met with a wall of silence. People didn't want to make waves. They had mortgages and car repayments and student loans. A few nameless animals here and there could be ignored all the way to the Piggly Wiggly when a paycheck was in hand. But she could no longer stand it. She had found a sympathetic ear, and she had sung like a canary. She would meet her contact at the grid police just before midnight, and she would spill the details of every secret she knew. She would tell them about Mr. Kane. She would tell them about Dr. Shade. She would tell them about the unpaid overtime, the violations of workers' rights to regular breaks, and the accounting discrepancies she had noticed. And she would tell them about the elephants. The assistant allowed herself a small smile before nodding once in acknowledgement of Dr. Shade's orders. Yes, only 5 hours till midnight, the end of New Eden, and the beginning of her new life. At that moment, the doors separating the reception area from the outside world parted, and in stepped a woman who was more hair than anything else, and a dinosaur behind her wearing a turtleneck. The assistant startled. "May I help you?" she squeaked. "Welcome," Dr. Shade interjected, "to New Eden, Mr. Rex." "Thank you very much," grinned Teddy. "We're here to see Kane," said the hare. Dr. Shade sniffed. And you are? Coltrane, Grid Police, Coltrane replied. She looked Dr. Shade up and down and then added with a terrible attempt at Dr. Shade's accent. And you are? Dr. Shade, Kane's personal physician. Dr. Shade paused, considering her options. Finally, she chose a course of action. She turned on her heel and barked out, "Follow," as she headed towards a doorway leading toward a long and orange-lit corridor. Coltrane bowed to Teddy and continued her mocking accent. "Come, Teddy, follow. Again, all of this dialogue from the film. Teddy parroted back, "Follow," and laughed as he followed Coltrane, following Dr. Shade down the corridor. Dr. Shade muttered as she approached a door at the end of the corridor. "I hope he has a moment to spare. This is highly unusual." She opened the door to a vast chamber, as dim and shadowy as the rest of the building had been. Peering into the darkness, Coltrane could see a high-backed chair behind a large empty desk. Teddy paused at the doorway, uncertain for a moment how to proceed. Coltrane's police training cautioned her against entering an unfamiliar space without considering all the options. Dr. Shade did not break stride as she entered the room and approached the desk. She spoke to the chair. "Mr. Kane, you have visitors. Teddy Rex and, She faltered for the first time, searching her memory for the forgotten name. At this insult, Coltrane snapped back into the present and charged into the room. Teddy followed a few steps behind. "Coltrane," she said loudly to the dark, shadowy outline of the chair, attempting to cover for her momentary hesitation. Dr. Shade betrayed no emotion, standing next to the chair shape. She said, "Yes, Coltrane," and took a step back into the darkness. For a moment, Coltrane felt alone. Teddy was behind her, but out of her line of sight. Dr. Shade was now a wisp of smoke against an inky black sky, impossible to grasp when looking directly at it. The chair made no sound, no motion to suggest anyone was there. The only sound was Coltrane's own heart beating loudly in her ears. She began to count her possible exit strategies if this was a trap. At that moment, the chair shape moved backwards, and Mr. Kane's face emerged from the darkness. As he raised himself out of the chair and spread his arms wide in greeting, he slid into a patch of orange light, and his shadowy features became a warm smile. "Welcome, Theodore. Hello," he grinned. In my head, he's Bill Nye. Teddy rushed forward, almost knocking Coltrane over with his tail. "Hi, Mr. Kane. I'm sorry to barge in, sir, but I'd like you to meet my partner, Detective Katie Coltrane." "Nice to meet you," Coltrane said, rubbing her elbow where Teddy ran into her. Kane turned his attention to Coltrane and mulled over his words. "Nice to meet you." He considered Coltrane for a second longer, and then clapped his hands together excitedly. "We have something wonderful to show you." Kane walked over to a large aquarium that had been sitting in the darkness against one wall of the office. Coltrane cursed under her breath. She hadn't noticed the aquarium at all. What else was she missing? She took a moment to look around the room. As her eyes adjusted to the gloom, she saw laboratory desks with beakers and test tubes filled with various liquids. Teddy spoke, and her attention was once again on the dinosaur and the aging man. "Guppies?" Teddy exclaimed, pointing at the fish swimming in the aquarium. "Ice fish," Kane corrected, not unkindly. "Oh." Teddy was impressed. Kane began explaining. "Remarkable creatures. They live on our polar oceans in waters so cold no other organism can survive. They possess an enzyme which I've isolated and reproduced." Kane produced a small remote control out of his suit pocket. As soon as he pressed a button on the remote, the water in the tank froze solid. He continued, "Because of it, ice fish can be trapped and frozen in ice for years." He paused, taking in the sight of the school of fish frozen in mid-tail swish. It looked like a painting, the fish so perfectly still and yet so lifelike. Kane laughed quietly and pushed the button again. The fish kept swimming as if someone had paused a video and then pressed play again. Teddy and Coltrane were mesmerized. Kane gazed at the fish as he continued his explanation. "Brought back to life. After injecting a serum from the ice fish into the subject's blood, they can be frozen and reanimated whenever you like." Coltrane caught herself drifting into a trance, watching the fish swim back and forth, seemingly in concert with Kane's mellifluous speech. She shook it off and snapped angrily, "That's just peachy, but we're not here for a social call." "I liked the fish," Teddy said quietly. "Come on," Coltrane said through gritted teeth. "No need to take an attitude," chided Dr. Shade. She was still a shadow within a shadow beside Kane's chair. He now returned to the chair and sat down. Coltrane's eyes had adjusted to the gloom now, so she could make out his face and shape against the high back of the chair. Kane took a cigar out of a box from within a drawer on his desk. He lit the end. It burned brightly in the low light. "I'll try to remember that," Coltrane spoke to the cigar tip. "We're here because someone gave Oliver Rex and a clone named Adam a new cosmic address." Kane took a slow drag of the cigar and Shade answered for him. Is there something we can do to help?" "Well, according to his roommate, Oliver worked here and the dead clone was registered to you." Kane sat forward suddenly, engaging in the conversation. "Adam worked in species data with Oliver." "Species data?" Coltrane asked. "I collect endangered species. We try to rescue the last specimen when we can and keep them here in my compound," Kane explained. Dr. Shade stepped forward into the light in an attempt to usher Coltrane and Teddy to the door. "Thank you for letting us know." Coltrane stood her ground. "You're so very welcome, but I do have one more thing to ask," she mocked. "Is it a little strange that both these guys were made extinct on the same night and both just happened to work for you?" Kane's eyes narrowed slightly. "It strikes me as tragic," he said slowly. "I'm sorry, officers. I'm sorry I can't be more help to you." Dr. Shade stepped forward again, shepherding them towards the door. "Ah, thank you," Coltrane said, as she took a step back towards the door. She held eye contact with Kane as she walked backwards. "Thank you for your time," Teddy said obsequiously. "Thank you. Goodbye," Kane said. "Why so many goodbyes?" Kane said as he leaned back into the chair and disappeared into shadow once more. "Goodbye. I really enjoyed seeing the fishes," Teddy babbled as he approached the doorway. "Let's go," Coltrane growled at him and left the room. "Excuse me," Teddy said to Dr. Shade and the chair-shaped shadow. He turned and ran out the door, yelling, "Coming!" That's the end of that.
The plot thickens. You know how they complain, like in movies, how no one ever says goodbye on the phone? It's like all those goodbyes were taken and put into Theodore Rex. They were like, we'll put them all into a film which no one will ever see. But they're there. Wow.
Boy.
So, Sebastian is lured by a beeping arcade game and Zapheads jump out from the machine and abduct him. Teddy and Coltrane then go to Oliver Rex's funeral, which is a scene from Suzanne.
Yeah. That's
I
me.
still don't understand what's going on. Who is this Sebastian? What is this arcade machine business?
Yeah, what the hell is Sebastian? Makes no sense.
Sebastian's the kid.
I know he's a kid,
the
but
kid.
He wants Whoopi Goldberg to get on his dad's
Why?
big old D.
Is it like in The Crow where there's that was it a girl with a skateboard and then there was Ernie Hudson?
Girls don't skateboard.
Okay. Scene 7 by me. Yes. Someone had gone to great effort to attempt a conversion from ramshackle club to ramshackle funeral parlour, and for all their good intentions had not quite made the grade. The candles were a nice attempt, Coltrane thought, though perhaps not wise considering the spatial awareness of most of the mourners present. She tried to block out the wailers. There were a handful of especially strident ones along the front of the gathering who, if they had been human, would have already torn their hair and fainted. As it was, they simply rocked back and forth, keening, tiny arms clutched to their reptilian bosoms. Coltrane probably had some great aunts like that. Somewhere. There was something about the heaven-gazing, pearl-clutching that seemed nostalgically familiar. Similarly, the Styracosaurus presiding had the moth-eaten gentility of a small-town reverend. He might have impressed slightly more without the drooping plastic wreath of flowers around his neck. Brothers and sisters. He had a good voice, an imposing presence, and held a pair of drumsticks like he knew how to use them. Coltrane had respect for that. We are gathered here this day to recycle Oliver Rex, who, from the beginning to the end, was our friend. A sonorous huff of breath. There was a fresh burst of weeping from the front of the gathering. Coltrane sidled slightly closer to Teddy. Where's the body? Teddy was holding up well. Oh, he was liquefied. He took a sip of his drink as Coltrane stared, uncomprehending, then looked down into her own drink uneasily. What, like a smoothie? Teddy pointed. Coltrane hadn't noticed the web of pipes snaking away from the main stage. His essence fertilizes the flowers, so that each guest can take some home. Farewell, sweet Ollie, heaved Molly Rex, her eyes swimming as she blinked rapidly to keep the tears back. A female on her right moaned like a birthing cow. Oliver! She paused, assumedly to ensure attention was on her. Oliver is compost! It could not have been a dino! A murmur crept across the crowd, and another female pursed her lips and nodded. Oh yes, she speaketh the truth. Go on, baby doll, you testify. Bolstered by this validation, the cow mourner flung her tiny arms wide and beseeched the mildewed ceiling. Maybe it was the soft skins. Oh, Oliver, who will be next? A polite, if forced, cough brought the attention back to the stage, where Dr. Shade was waving forward a tired-looking cane. My children, Kane paused to gather himself, and Coltrane had a stab of sympathy. Parents shouldn't outlive their children, even if those children were, debatably, millions of years old. Surely a genius of his calibre could be happily living in a glass jar by now and not having to haul his decrepit self into stinking clubs to console a crowd who by rights should have been leaving him alone to his grief. I am to blame for Oliver's murder because it was I who brought dinosaurs back to life. He hung his head, and the croons of sympathy seemed odd coming from the creatures he was referring to. But I give you my solemn oath we'll find who was responsible. A better world is coming, I promise you. I promise you. Shade ushered the old man off the stage and through the crowd towards the door. The hesitant silence that followed was telling, and Coltrane watched them go intently. Now. She had to grab him now before he disappeared back into a cage of red tape and meetings. The Styracosaurus had begun drumming, on anything and everything, and Coltrane smacked the back of her hand against Teddy's side to get his attention. I'm going after Kane. Teddy was bouncing slightly, his tail swinging in wider and wider arcs. Other dinosaurs were dancing, and his focus was less on Coltrane and more on the swinging hindquarters of a certain Molly Rex. What? I'm going after Kane. Right. He didn't notice her leave as the beat intensified and voices rose in a ritualistic, thudding homage to their departed, composted friend. Teddy was out of breath, exhilarated, and ready for another drink, or 10. He was pondering his odds of squeezing through the crowd to get to the drinks table when a familiar anise and wormwood scent curled around him. Thanks so much for coming, Teddy. Molly had regained her composure. The husk and purr of her voice was calm, in control, and perhaps just a touch tremulous, enough to suggest delicate womanhood and not mental instability. Oh, Molly! Her perfume made him feel drunk, or tear-gassed, or something similar. He wished he had pockets to put his wandering hands in, but reflected he probably would not have been able to reach them if he had. My pleasure. If there's anything else I can do. She looked away, her lashes dropping to veil her eyes. A walk home would be a lifesaver. Bones, he'd wish he'd had another drink. He swallowed. Oh, yeah, let me ask my partner. Excuse me? He didn't wait for her response, ducking away and towards the open door with a delicacy not usually seen in the hefty reptile. Coltrane did not appear to be as affected by Molly's predicament as Teddy was. What, she wants you to walk her home and it's purely police business? What was I, hatched yesterday? A sudden, hideous image of his colleague flopping, membraned and gooey from the remnants of an egg. Teddy blinked rapidly. No. What are you doing? We have to work here. Yeah, I know, but think of it as a police escort. Huh? Please? Teddy crouched a little, looking up at her. She narrowed her eyes. Don't do the eyes. The eyes kill me. She growled something that Teddy didn't catch and put her hands on her hips. Look, I'll tell you what. You've got 1 hour. I'll finish up inside. You be back here in an hour. Coltrane winced slightly. And do me a favour. What? He was already backing away towards the door, back into the driving rhythm and the musky aura of a certain heavy-hipped dino damsel of distress. Coltrane mentally wrote him off as a lost cause. You have a breath mint? Teddy was backing into the doorway with the delicacy of a 12-wheeler with a horse behind the wheel. Huh? Coltrane sighed. Nothing. 1 hour. Okay. She went to follow, grimacing at the stale beer scent that she'd managed to forget in light of the 10 minutes of cleanish night air she'd just enjoyed. A greying, ridged head wreathed in disintegrating flowers lurched into her field of vision. She eyed him warily. Nice ceremony. Styracosaurus was giving her a look of profound disapproval. She wondered if the earrings might have broken some dinosaur code of mourning, a code of mourning that excluded cobweb frangipanis. Thank you. There was nothing approaching gratitude in his voice. His head swung away. Theodore? Coltrane sidestepped the elder dinosaur, shaking her head. No, this was not her scene. She could leave Teddy to deal with critiques from his elders and agonisingly inept flirting. She had a job to do.
Wow.
Amazing. So you're a real kind of Whitley Strieber of flowery language.
It's so amazing too. We should note that we started recording this at 9 a.m. and Suzanne started writing this at about 1 a.m. Prior to that, and that's pretty solid.
Yeah, that's good. I think you could definitely be a novelization writer.
Novelizationalist.
Yes. Especially given your ability to really squeeze things into a small amount of time.
I'm a speaker under pressure. I actually did tweak the dialogue tiny bits, but more in the sense of contractions, moving of contractions, and I got rid of a terrible, terrible line, which is like, Theodore, you should give up your dream of being a detective. And Theodore goes, what? And that's the end of the scene. I was like, no, I can't make this work.
You monster.
The thing that Teddy says most is, what? Followed by, yeah.
And, yeah.
Well, look, Sebastian is brought to edge by the Zap Heads, not without a struggle though. Teddy walks Molly home, only they go to his apartment. They dance, but Teddy suddenly remembers he's left Coltrane waiting.
What?
So he leaves Molly in his apartment until he gets back.
Oh, God.
After more lovesick teasing, Coltrane and Teddy find out that the device that killed Oliver Rex was probably made by an underground villain known only as the Toy Maker.
What?
Which takes us to scene 8 from our good friend Lizzy Unpronounceable.
Yeah.
Oh, that's probably the most random disconnected scene ever.
I don't even have the words. Like, that last scene was plotting and stupid. This one is like a fever dream. Like you said before, it's just
Samurai Toy Man.
It's like a random collection of images that you've just your brain has just hatched together because it's eaten too much cheese. Like, that's just all it does.
like doing these little writing exercises was a little bit like those dreams where you accidentally show up at high school and you've got a test that you haven't studied for, or
and you're naked.
in a play that you've never heard of, and you're naked.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was exactly like that. So, okay, here we go. I thought you could drive, Teddy squeaked as he lumbered out of the back of the now dented garbage truck. Because apparently there's been a crash. Doesn't
Why
matter.
not?
Doesn't matter. Picking bits of banana peel off of his clothes. Can it, Coltrane barked. She shouldered the truck door open and jumped out. Damn truck. Damn case, damn dinosaur always on her damn back. She looked down the deserted street and then back at the building in front of her, safe behind a tall wire fence. So this is dragon-tailed dead storage? Teddy asked, his voice from just behind her shoulder. Yep, she replied. And then she murmured into her headset, download ambush avoidance. A second later, she could feel the tingle of new knowledge and skills surging into her brain.
She's never needed this before! Sorry. Carry on.
Teddy looked at her in awe. What? I didn't know you were BioWare. Yeah, all guns are. Coltrane could still feel the buzzing in her spine, but now she felt more alert, more ready for action. We're implanted with biochips. You see this badge? What badge? Yeah, Teddy looked. It's like a union label. We're more human than human. Coltrane felt the fizzing dissipate and knew that the download had completed. She sprung into action. Let's go. The two cops started walking around, trying to find a way into the compound. After a few moments, Teddy could no longer hold his curiosity back. Hey, he began. That must be classified information. Coltrane kept scanning the street and fence as she replied with a hint of menace. Yeah, it is. So let's keep it that way. Right, Teddy stuttered. So you're a human computer terminal, right? Coltrane just laughed. Before she could say anything more, a guard dog appeared at the hole in the fence, pushing its face through the wire and barking and snarling at the would-be intruders. Teddy turned to the dog and yelled, "Boo!" The dog yelped and ran away crying, terrified of the big lizard. "After you?" Teddy motioned to the hole in the fence. Coltrane arched an eyebrow and then motioned to a door a few feet away. "Door, let's go." "Right," Teddy muttered, chastened. The two figures crept through the door, and Coltrane started to scan their surroundings. Suddenly she heard a crash behind her. Teddy had knocked over a barrel with his uncontrollable tail. "Didn't I tell you to be quiet?" she snapped at him. "I need tail clearance," Teddy replied. He inwardly fumed for a moment. No, she had not told him that. But then he remembered that he was living his dream of becoming a real-life police cop, and he let the anger seep away. Coltrane crept through the room, her downloaded anti-ambush skills keeping her on high alert as she dodged what looked like dozens of punching bags hanging from the ceiling. Teddy looked more closely at one of the bags, but stepped back in shock as he realized the bag had a human face, its twisted expression frozen in place. Panic was his first reaction, but then his detective brain kicked in. Ew. "So people keep dead relatives here until medical science can reanimate them?" he said. "Well, they brought you guys back, so why should that be a surprise?" Coltrane had already registered the bodies. "That's true," said Teddy, quietly, peering gingerly at a face in another hanging body bag. He narrowly avoided knocking another bag off its hook with his tail, and Coltrane swore under her breath. "Walk like me," she hissed at him. "Right, like you." He nodded and tried to focus. Right foot, left foot, tail, right foot, left foot. As he got into a rhythm, he started to sing quietly to himself. Tiptoe. Coltrane spun around to face him, her frustration spilling over. "Stop with the tip, don't tip, just tiptoe." "Okay," Teddy replied.
Sure.
"What's that smell?" Coltrane's frustration was still at the surface. She couldn't help picking a fight with Teddy, trying to clear some of her anger that she felt over being stuck with him in the first place. And now he was going to alert everyone within a 5-mile radius of their position with his idiotic singing. Her face was an angry grimace. "Was that you?" "It's not me. How could it be me?" Teddy squeaked defensively. "Did you? Look, I didn't butt trumpet. One of those things is leaking." Word for word. "One of those things is leaking." Teddy waved his clawed hands around, gesturing at the human sausages hanging around them. "Fine," Coltrane huffed and started moving through the room again. "Fine, let's go." Teddy followed her and absent-mindedly started humming. "Do-do-do. Don't do-do-do," Coltrane said, less angrily than before. "What?" Teddy asked. "Don't do-do-do," Coltrane repeated, a little louder than before. Teddy's automatic sass reflex kicked in. What am I, waking these mummies up?" he jibed before he could think better of it. Coltrane just scowled. Come on. They came to the end of the body bags and found a reception desk. It was dusty and covered in suspicious stains, and in the middle of the desk sat a large handbag. Coltrane and Teddy both looked around, searching for signs of life. "Right, there's a bell. I'm going to ring it," Coltrane said. Teddy frowned. Weren't they trying to be quiet and inconspicuous? "Right, ring the bell," he murmured, confused. Coltrane slammed her hand down on the bell. Ding! "Yeah!" Teddy exclaimed, delighted at the sound of the bell. "Hey, we should look around," Coltrane said, turning away from the desk. At that moment, the bag on the desk snapped open with a pop. Coltrane's downloaded programs all kicked in at once, and she pulled her gun out as she spun around. She pointed her weapon at the bag. Teddy grunted in confusion. A head popped out of the bag. The head hummed, considering the gun that was now pointed exactly at its head. The head disappeared back into the bag. Coltrane was frozen in place. What had just happened? Had her downloads glitched? Had she accidentally installed a virus? Before she could think anything else, the head popped up again. "Ooh. Said the head. It peered at Coltrane, looking her up and down. Coltrane stared at the head, willing herself to wake up from what she was now sure was a nightmare. She knew she shouldn't have eaten all that cheese last night. The head spoke again. "Welcome to Dead Storage. Who's gonna die?" Coltrane and Teddy looked at each other, their confusion mirrored in each other's faces. After a moment, Coltrane collected herself. "Nobody's dying. We're looking for the toy maker." "Never heard of him," said the head. What do you mean you've never heard of him? Coltrane was starting to lose her cool. Come on, we know he's here. Where is he? She almost pleaded. Who wants to know? The head sneered. Who are you? Coltrane counted. I'm the guy from the bag, replied the guy from the bag. Coltrane felt as if she was going to scream. You want me to get in that bag with you and snatch you to pieces? But the guy in the bag was not impressed. Ooh, I'd love it, baby, he jeered, and blew a raspberry at Coltrane and the dinosaur. He laughed maliciously and disappeared into the bag again, shouting, Come and get it! Ha 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 ha!
Fuck.
Coltrane flipped. Come here, she yelled, and thrust her hand into the bag. She rummaged around, grunting and panting, searching for the guy in the bag. Suddenly she jerked her hand out of the bag and clutched the fingers of her other with her other hand in pain. Don't be going in my bag, you understand? The guy in the bag cautioned. Listen, Zit, Coltrane spoke through gritted teeth. I want to know where the toy maker is, or my friend here is going to bite your pea head off. If Teddy had been thinking straight, he would have broken into a grin at being called friend by his new partner. But at the word bite, his lizard brain kicked in and his stomach rumbled. Food? He said hopefully. Again, the guy in the bag was not impressed. Ha, he said. What do you mean, ha? You're 4 inches tall and you're giving us ha? Coltrane felt her grip on reality slip further. Hey, nightmare hair, said the guy in the bag. Take lizard lips and get out of here. Coltrane remembered her gun. She pulled it out again and held it to the guy in the bag's head's chest. Take that, she said. She had meant it to be menacing and witty, but she inwardly cringed when she heard it escape her lips. Hey! The guy in the bag seemed more annoyed than scared. He yelled out to the room, Fuzzy! We got trouble! Fuzzy! Oh, Fuzzy! Who's Fuzzy? Coltrane asked no one in particular. I don't know, said Teddy, stating the obvious. A movement next to the bag caught both of their attentions. A hairy caterpillar that had until now gone unnoticed in all the kerfuffle slowly started to uncoil itself.
I remember this, it is horrifying because it's like this little muppety caterpillar and it's just,
Oh, Coltrane exclaimed. She had realised that this must be Fuzzy. If this was a dream, of course, a guy in a bag would stick a caterpillar called Fuzzy on them. It's a hairy hot dog, said Teddy. Unhelpfully.
Out of context comedy corner.
The caterpillar unfurled itself fully and then emitted a loud, Cops! Cops? The guy in the bag exclaimed. I'm out of here. The guy in the bag ducked back into the bag, disappearing once again from view. Teddy was very confused. What? He asked Pierre. Follow me, said Fuzzy, as it began to transform into a butterfly. Once Fuzzy's wings unfurled and fluttered a few times, it jumped into the air and started flittering through the room. Let's go! Come on, up and away! We're going now! Let's get moving! Elevator going up! Fuzzy babbled as the butterfly flew away. Teddy was done. Get me out of here, he said. Let's go, Coltrane agreed. And sang.
That more than anything makes me want to watch the film. I need to see that with my own eyes.
It doesn't make any
because I can't
sense.
picture it.
No.
I just want to know why there's a bunch of hanging corpses before you get to the reception desk. I was like, I don't know, I feel like that's all
That's a
entirely
winner.
the wrong way around.
I feel like I've got 2 new rude phrases to use in my everyday life now. Butt trumpet and hairy hot dog. Amazing.
I'm still... what is going on in this film? I don't know.
Yeah, that is really...
I thought I knew at the
weird.
beginning, but I'm out now. The Zapheads break into Teddy's apartment and capture Molly while she's having a bath.
Ooh, in Teddy's apartment.
The toy maker is confronted and his lair is destroyed in an explosion as he tries to escape, but he is caught, and Coltrane and Teddy eventually get him to talk. They find out Kane is behind it all, and that he has Sebastian and Molly as hostages. The toy maker says to talk to the Zapheads if they want to get to Kane, but also says they'll never get into his compound. Summers meets his inevitable end. Rather than surviving with Kane, he's killed by Shade and the Zapheads. Okay, so scene 9 is our good friend Xavier, host of Something Joystick, who is thousands of kilometres away on the other side of the country. He has pre-recorded his single scene, and we are going to have a listen to it now. So thank you, So much Xavier, who also pulled this out in a very short amount of time.
The duo settled into the vehicle that had, lamentably, become their home base. Coltrane sunk back in her seat, relaxing a little, and making sure to adjust her mirrors to give a good view of the city streets around her. Gazing into the rear vision mirror, she saw the city she'd sworn to protect, a hellscape swimming with thugs and brain-dead criminals, and now in worse shape than ever. She chuckled to herself, thinking of the day she'd be able to leave this life behind. But that day was not today. Meanwhile, her partner found himself riding the garbage truck equivalent of shotgun again, the main section of the truck easily its least comfortable. Ironically, though he was surrounded by the city's garbage, he had a much sunnier outlook than that of his partner, and while Coltrane could barely keep her mind off the filth that roamed the streets, Theodore Rex beamed with pride that he was finally living his dream of being a detective. The truck, in Coltrane's capable hands, slowed to a stop outside another large warehouse building. Maybe it was the aging gun's cynicism, maybe it was the dank, musty smell of fetid trash in the air, or maybe it was her biochip's inability to provide any information about the building, but something seemed fishy about the warehouse. And not the good Carnival Prize goldfish, award-winning pan-seared Atlantic salmon, relaxing 3-hour YouTube scuba footage video kind of way. No, it was more the look right in the eyes of the sickly aging lobster before sending it to its boiling hot demise kind of fishy. Coltrane hesitated a moment before stepping out of the vehicle and opening the hatch of the garbage truck to allow Teddy an exit. "You weren't really going to bite that guy's head off, were you?" asked the detective, with a half-smile. "It crossed my mind," replied the lumbering dinosaur, his partner's comment making him realize he hadn't had a bite to eat in some time. His mind began to wander, and he imagined the feeling of the thug's head between his immense teeth, crunchy on the outside but warm and gooey inside, bursting with rich, dark chocolate chips. A loud crash rang out as Theodore clumsily fell out the back end of the truck and hit the asphalt. Theodore's ass felt pretty bad after that. "Gun command," uttered Coltrane, trying to ignore her partner's pratfall. A distant, soothingly robotic voice replied, "Offline, offline, BioWare down." Coltrane, frustrated, yelled into her earpiece, "Gun command!" She tapped the earpiece, fumbling with its simple interface, and feeling the point at which the machine connected with her delicate skin. It still hurt, just a little, to feel the connective tissue, and she couldn't help but think back to her more innocent years, before the state had welded the device to her skin, hardwiring technology into her body. The memories were fuzzy. Compared to her new life, they seemed almost trivial, but something in her still yearned to trace the subtle curve of her inner ear without its accompanying metallic intruder. "Man," she whispered to herself. "What's the matter?" asked Teddy, who had been patiently awaiting direction from his more experienced partner. "I can't reach anyone on my comm," replied Coltrane dejectedly. "I think that explosion blew it out." Teddy gave Coltrane a look conveying his concern, but when he went to speak, all that came out was, Coltrane fixed her gaze on the horizon with a look of determination on her face. "That means we're out here all alone." Teddy, with courage brimming in his heart, didn't let this shake him. He may have been a rookie cop, but he wasn't about to let a lack of experience or backup stand in his way. If anything, he was glad. He had everything to prove and nothing to fear. "Listen," he said, trying to match Coltrane's cool composure. "For what it's worth, I've got you covered." The more experienced gun thought to herself that her new partner was only unafraid because he truly had no idea what was coming, but stopped herself before saying it. If she had any chance of getting through this alive, she was going to have to work with Teddy. Like it or not, he was all she had. "Why, thank you, Teddy," she said warmly. Before Theodore could react, though, the sound of approaching footsteps cut through this rare moment of bonding. "Oh, look, we've got company," said Coltrane cockily. A figure emerged out of the smoke and darkness in front of the duo. With spiked-up black hair, brightly glowing neon eye makeup, and an outfit of dark leather and chains, he was the picture of a zaphead. But even in spite of the thug's blaster pointed squarely between the two of them, Coltrane and Theodore knew better than to be intimidated. If anything, Theodore found the seriousness of the situation amusing. "Ba-da-ba-ba-ba! I'm gonna get me a zappy meal," sang the dinosaur mockingly, the grumbling of his stomach simulating the roar of a more menacing creature. What do you mean you're going to get a zappy meal? Asked Coltrane, ignoring the looming blaster threat. You're a vegetarian. What are you talking about? Hey, I binge once in a while, replied Teddy, in a statement that could have been threatening to the Zaphead were it not for the glazed-over expression on the T-Rex's face as saliva began to pour out of the lizard's giant mouth. Teddy thought back to his ritualistic childhood trips to fast food restaurants with his mother, who was always too busy to cook. Now that Teddy had more control of his own life, he succumbed to a need for a healthier diet, but that didn't stop the dinosaur's mind from wandering. Cheeseburgers, piled high with bacon, cheese, and beef patties, fresh, crunchy French fries, and sweet, sparkling soda to wash it all down. It was almost too much to bear. Teddy shook off the thought as his partner sprang into action. Let's go, urged Coltrane, and in response, the dinosaur pulled the Ray-Ban sunglasses out from the front pocket of his Letterman jacket and slid them onto his face, signaling that it was business time. Inside the warehouse, the gang of Zapheads were seated around a table, but this was no fancy upscale dinner party. The youths perched on tables, some smacking gum, others smoking cigarettes, a Singaporean nightmare. A few of the young men, all of them bursting with misplaced adolescent energy, had gathered around one older, bearded thug who had his left hand pressed up against a table and was using his other hand to jab a knife between his fingers at increasing speed. A larger circle had gathered around a pair of monkeys, both of them petrified, desperate, and angry, with razor-sharp knives taped to their front paws. Clearly a fight was being staged, and the thugs around these innocent creatures clutched fistfuls of money, waving them in the air as they hooted and hollered. The monkey with the lighter fur of the two received a forceful push from behind and was unwittingly thrust into his opponent. The darker monkey instinctively swerved backwards with some speed, knocking over one of the crazed onlookers, and saw that this was his chance to make an escape. Climbing up the grounded Zaphead, the monkey hopped from head to head, finding the thug's ludicrous, gelled-up hairstyles to provide stable footing for a quick scramble out of the room. The largest audience of all, however, gathered around the group's ringleader, Spinner, who sat perched on a raised chair toward the back of the room, swigging from an unlabeled bottle of wine. The sweaty, mean-looking thug, dressed up in a somewhat tattered but still dressy tuxedo, was surrounded by a gaggle of yes-men and goons, as well as a handful of scantily clad women who seemed about as excited to be there as the two primates had been earlier. All had been painted with the Zaphead's signature neon makeup, and one held a large fern leaf over Spinner's head, awaiting his order for more fanning. "At midnight, the world turns into a pumpkin!" bellowed Spinner, howling with laughter at his own incredibly up-to-date cultural reference. His followers laughed to reinforce that he was really on point with that one. One particularly clever henchman echoed, "Or an ice cube!" The steely-faced, bearded Zaphead looked up from his knife game to add, "And Coltrane and Teddy Bear, and everybody else." The entire gang began to cheer, but they were interrupted by the front door smashing open. Crash! The garbage truck burst through the entrance, with the Zaphead from outside tied to the front. The Zapheads looked up, dropping whatever they were doing to rush over and untie their friend. Gathering around the truck, the Zapheads scrambled to remove the ropes, which had been tied with a keen eye and superhuman precision. With the gang distracted, Coltrane slid silently down a rope behind the group. Pleased with herself, she began to laugh. The plan was coming together perfectly. One thug, the one who'd previously been knocked down by the monkey, looked around suddenly and saw her, but before he could call out, she slapped him down with a thud. This was just not his day. "Hey girls!" called out the gun, all action now, to the ladies standing around Spinner. The rest of the thugs began to turn towards Coltrane as she walked over to the garbage truck, casually engaging them. Hey! So, guys, how you all doing?" Spinner, with some disgust, threw his bottle of wine across the room as it smashed against the back wall. The room fell silent. Spinner had never been one for recycling. "This broad keeps popping up," he boomed, trying to maintain control of the situation. "Don't I, though?" asked Coltrane. "Did you miss me? I bet you did." "I sure missed you," she laughed. "We had such a good time, you know." She began to pace around the room as the gang looked on, mouths agape. "I was thinking about it the other day. We had such a good time when I was shooting at you and you were shooting at me, trying to kill me, remember? And I thought, where do I go if I have a problem? Where did I come? To you! I'm looking for Kane and I need your help. A mean grin spread across Spinner's greasy face as the room full of zapheads trained their blasters on the intruder. Coltrane, noticing this, played up her innocent facade. Now why would you do that? I'm really crushed. I mean, I came here because I thought you could help. I mean, I'm so emotional, I don't know what to do. With a wink, she added, and my partner is just going to be really put out by this. Spinner, without wasting a moment on concern, echoed back, Your partner, eh? Coltrane knew Theodore was the ace up her sleeve, so she cockily yelled, Aha! Raising the area where one of her eyebrows would have been if she had any. The Zapheads, of course, burst out with laughter at this. The notion that Coltrane might have a partner did little to shake their confidence. They, after all, had safety in numbers and were armed to the teeth with blasters. You thought I was going to come here by myself, didn't you? Said Coltrane, still not letting the gang's confidence affect her. Aha! I know you did. She knows we did, repeated Spinner, laughing. The Zapheads raucously laughed as well, backing up their ringleader, some of them slapping their thighs and others bending over backwards with big belly laughs. Coltrane, almost to herself, sighed, silly man, before putting a finger up to her ear and pressing a concealed button on her earpiece. The small device emitted an ear-splitting, high-pitched noise which instantly distracted the crowd of thugs who clutched their hands to their ears in agony. For all its intrusive hardware, thought Coltrane, the bionic implant still had its advantages. The Zapheads writhed in pain and tried to distance themselves from the source of the noise, gathering together in the mad scramble. Hearing his partner's single from up in the warehouse's rafters, Theodore Rex swung down with a heroic yelp from a hanging rope and crashed neatly into the whole congregation of Zapheads gathered in front of Coltrane. The goons, helpless at the mercy of the dinosaur's immense weight, screamed out in terror before being knocked out cold. And scene. Hi guys. Thanks for letting me do this. It's Xavier. Hi. Bye. Hi. Poker's Better Rules. Happy New Year, Christmas, and everything.
That was amazing.
That was fantastic.
You've got another career. That is some. I love the fish.
Yes.
And I love the asphalt as well. Very Xavier. That was awesome. Thank you so much, Xavier. That is great. Shame you can't be with us. And everybody listen to Something Joystick. Really great that this was able to happen, actually, that we're able to get. And that opens up possibilities for future novelization writing challenge. We might even get an American on. Just kidding.
Steady on, lad.
Let's not get too excited with that.
So look, using some kind of aircraft with Teddy dangling below, Spinner and Coltrane fly into the compound, crashing into the main building. Spinner is shot by Shade. Coltrane is captured, but she fights off the Zapheads and escapes to find Sebastian. That leads us to our second last scene, scene 10, by Jess.
Woo!
Kane lay on the floor. Wait. Let's start this again. Teddy lay on the floor of Kane's lavish office, dazed by his crash landing. It hadn't been unexpected, but Teddy was never really prepared for any kind of experience. He moved his limbs experimentally and moaned with pain. Ah, oh, ah, ah. Nothing seemed to be broken, but everything hurt. He was pinned to the ground by branches and wreckage from the aircraft. Despite the pain, Teddy reflected that transport was easier than ever in this age of aircraft technology development. Meanwhile, Teddy's cries had attracted the attention of Kane and Dr. Shade. Kane's face wore a look of genuine concern, while Dr. Shade's icy British demeanour revealed no emotion whatsoever. Teddy! Kane cried. Despite his evil and Germanic personality, he felt a fatherly connection to all dinosaurs. Teddy's head spun. Molly! Oh, my head! He groaned. Teddy! Kane repeated for some reason. Theodore Rex rose unsteadily to his feet. Ah, what happened? He asked moronically. Teddy! Kane said for a third time. You're safe now! Teddy's detective instincts kicked slowly into gear. Wait a minute. You killed Oliver and Adam, didn't you? He demanded. Amazingly, this had only just sunk in. Cain nodded sadly. The sacrifice was necessary, unfortunately. Well, at headquarters, we call that murder, Teddy announced. He was right. Dr. Shade felt none of Cain's fatherly fondness for the dinosaurs. Under her cold English demeanour was simply more cold English interior. She lifted her gun and aimed it at the lovable dinosaur. "Ah-ha-ha! Teddy!" Cain cackled, apparently unable to stop saying the name of his antagonist. Teddy shook his head. "I'm sorry, you're under arrest." But Cain had more to say. He reached out his remote control and the doors slid open futuristically. "Look around! At the future!" As usual, Teddy did not understand what was going on. What? "Life has changed, Teddy," Cain announced. "And in 1 minute, I'll change the world." Although he was supposedly in the process of arresting Cain, Teddy turned and walked towards the doors, curious about Cain's plans. "What are you talking about?" he asked. Cain gestured towards his most impressive creation. "You see, mankind is a failed species, and look, New Eden will finish them off. I will block out the sun and create a new ice age." The gigantic missile that Cain ironically called New Eden, in an obvious allusion to the biblical Eden, a perfect world without humans except for Adam and Eve, and also they were thrown out anyway, towered over them as the hatches opened above it. Like J. Robert Oppenheimer, father of the atomic bomb, Cain had used his scientific genius for destruction. However, unlike Oppenheimer, Cain seemed to feel no remorse or qualms about his creation, and also he did not smoke or speak French. Meanwhile, Coltrane was running through the woods and the compound looking for Sebastian and battling various Zapheads. As Cain majestically pressed the remote control, the vibrations of the missile's launch travelled through Teddy in a way that would have been pleasant under different circumstances. As it was, however, Teddy felt nothing but his sinking heart. "Wait! No! No!" he shouted in vain as the high-tech device took off. But Cain's long-winded demonstration of his plan was not over. "This time I'll run evolution, not God," announced Cain both blasphemously and confusingly. He pressed yet another of the seemingly endless buttons, and the wall behind his desk rose to reveal his specimen chamber. There, arranged like sweets in a sweet shop or underwear in an underwear shop, was his so-called ark. "Here's my ark," Cain explained. "It contains the seeds of the New Eden. I brought here breeding pairs of all plants, insects, mammals, amphibians, birds, bacteria, etc., 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 etc. The ingredients for paradise. That's my paradise. That's my paradise! It's my dream!" His mad monologue was interrupted by a sexy voiceover. "Detonation minus 100. "My destiny!" Cain continued ecstatically. "So you froze them here just to save them?" Teddy asked, somewhat confused by Cain's complicated plan, and also by his wide range of scientific interests. Cain scoffed. "Oh no, it's a small price to give them immortality, don't you agree?" Teddy decided to stop trying to understand the plan and simply to oppose it on general grounds. "No! No!" he shouted angrily. Edge sauntered into the room to join them, carrying his gun. At this point, Teddy remembered that Dr. Shade was also there pointing a gun. "We call it survival of the fittest," Edge boasted. "Huh?" Teddy muttered, confused about this cryptic statement, as artificially preserving specimens actually had nothing to do with Darwin's theory of evolution. As Edge was also unsure of what he meant, he changed the subject. "We should go," he announced. He began to walk away. "Yeah," Cain agreed and followed him. Suddenly, Teddy remembered another plot. "Wait, what have you done with Molly?" Cain pressed yet another button on his apparently universal remote, which controlled everything in the compound. "Oh, she's safe," he said reassuringly. "I'm pleased that you care for each other." Teddy was confused. "What is... Huh?" One of the cryogenic chambers held his reptilian paramour. He rushed to her side. Cain smiled predatorily. "A pair of Rexes. At last my ark is complete. Ha ha ha! Yes, prepare him for a sleep." Of course, Dr. Shade snapped with frigid English efficiency. Teddy put his hand to the chamber window longingly. Molly, my love! Molly, what have they done to you? Oh! In the meantime, Coltrane kept fighting Zapheads and things kept exploding. Back in the lab, Dr. Shade held a terrifyingly large syringe as Teddy backed slowly away from her into an empty cryogenic chamber. Teddy attempted bravado. Hey, hold your horses. Needles creep me out. Oh, one little prick and you'll wake up in paradise, promised Dr. Shade, seemingly unaware of the double meaning of her words. Terrific, Teddy nodded, trying to stall for time. So tell me, why did you guys kill Oliver and Adam, huh? Shade circled Teddy and paused in front of the open door to the chamber. In spite of her freezing English nature, she was not immune to the temptation of lengthily explaining her evil plans. They threatened to expose Mr. Kane's master plan, Shade explained. Oh? Teddy said encouragingly. Don't you realise? Shade's eyes glittered with the fervour of the true believer. Something wonderful has begun, and you, Teddy, are invited to join the party. Teddy made a last-ditch effort to end the madness. Yeah, well, do me a favour. You seem like a nice, mean lady. Please help me stop your boss. Eleazar has the remote control. He's the only one who can abort the plan, so... Dr. Shade shrugged and twirled the huge veterinary needle about menacingly. Yeah, I'd like a little chat with Kane, Teddy said, stepping forward menacingly, as though he had not been chatting with Kane interminably just minutes before. Even Dr. Shade's laugh was cold and British. Ah, ha, 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 ha. She laughed for some reason. He's on his way up to one of his sleep chambers. Now, shh, Teddy. Teddy sighed and walked slightly to the side of the chamber. Close your eyes, the best is yet to come, promised Dr. Shade like a creepy lover. Yeah, maybe you're right, Doc. I'll cooperate, Teddy promised. Suddenly, Teddy swiveled. Bam! He hit Shade full in her cold English face with his scaly, hefty tail. She fell backwards into the chamber and he slammed the door shut. Teddy! Teddy! Shade screamed Englishly. Sorry, Doc, got other plans, Teddy said with an adorably impish air, ignoring her anguish. Teddy! Shade yowled as the chamber filled with vapour. Detonation -80, the seductive voiceover purred. The missile was on its way.
Holy shit.
Scary German guy is bitching!
Yeah.
So everyone understand the plot at this point?
I'm as confused as Teddy.
Totes.
What?
I don't understand anything, honestly. I feel like we've had the scene where the evil plan is explained, but it still doesn't make any sense. Like, if they're going to freeze Teddy for the next world, why does Dr. Shade not want to be frozen? Because then that's the only way she can survive into the next world.
And who's going to wake them up? Because everybody's going to be frozen.
That is a very valid point.
Points for Oppenheimer references.
Thank you. Thank you, Wikipedia. Novelization writer's friend.
Yes, this is true. We take a moment to appreciate Wikipedia. Yes.
So, Teddy rescues Molly from the freezer, Coltrane finds them, but she is shot and goes offline. Teddy chases after Kane and Edge, lassoing their car. Edge is presumably killed in an explosion when the car crashes. Teddy takes the remote controlling the missile from Kane and stops the plan from being realised.
Yay!
And that takes us to Suzanne.
You've only had 10 years to learn how to say it.
Awkward. And this is our final scene. This is the ending.
Tis. Okay. Teddy, resplendent in a suit and a colour-matched tiny sling for his arm, was glowing. If there'd ever been any doubt that a 1.5-ton lizard could be effervescent, it had just been dispelled. He was proud and giddy and so thrilled he threatened to vibrate out of his suit. Coltrane was better at holding it together, largely because Sebastian's chimpanzee was bored and eyeing her with interest, and she didn't want to do anything to hold his attention, but also for Teddy's sake. This was his day. She could quietly congratulate herself for her role in it. After all, but that was self-serving and unnecessary. She'd done her job, and she'd done it well, just like she expected of herself. Hopefully Teddy's burst of success would motivate him on further. The shriek of an enraged peacock prompted laughter from the crowd, and the commissioner at the podium allowed everyone a moment to refocus. We're here today to honour Theodore Rex. Teddy, we owe you an apology. Soft skin, scale, you've showed us that they're only words. Words that keep us apart. Our survival depends on all species treating each other with compassion, kindness and respect. Teddy, he paused for the sake of theatre and the collection of photographers furiously clicking on both sides of the stage. It is my honour to promote you to Detective First Class. A burst of applause, then shouting and whistling and stamping, and for a moment you couldn't even hear the animals of New Eden Zoo, roaming around the exterior of the festivities with curiosity and an eye for carelessly dropped food. A flock of brightly coloured birds burst skyward at the noise, as Teddy accepted a gold badge from the Commissioner. "Wow! Thank you, sir!" The Commissioner opted out of shaking his claw, but ducked his head civilly. "Teddy, you were right. We can all realise our dreams." A personal assistant was waving at him with a phone at one ear, and thankfully, public hero was all well and good, but give the damn fossil some mouthwash for Pete's sake. He stepped down from the podium and set his mind on realising his own dreams. Whiskey, primarily, maybe served by one of those handsome Oriental girls. Idly daydreaming about his more exotic staff, the Commissioner had a split second of consternation when something large and green swept into his field of vision and smacked him upside the head. The personal assistant watched her boss crumple like an old sheet onto the lawn and debated whether gathering him up violated her workplace health and safety contract. Teddy, tail swinging wildly with joy, was oblivious. "Teddy, I'm so proud of you." Molly was breathless, bright-eyed and nearly squeaking with enthusiasm. "You demand." Teddy gave a giggle of delight and extended the badge to Molly for inspection. He caught sight of Coltrane slipping unobtrusively down from the ribbon stage. "Hey, thanks, Katie. I couldn't have done it without you." Coltrane smiled, an eyebrow raised. "Oh, yes, you could have." Teddy was unconvinced. "You think?" "Oh, yeah. I believe you could do anything you put your mind to, Teddy." Teddy suspected that underneath ridges of scales, spiny protrusions, and gelatinous mucus, he was blushing. "Oh, please." She smirked at him. "Anytime you need me, you know how to find me." She turned to go, and Teddy reached an arm to grab hers. He fell short and flapped his arm a little in an attempt to hold her attention. "You know, it's funny you should say that. As a gold badge, I get to pick my new partner." The look Coltrane gave him looked marginally horrified, but Teddy was reasonably sure that was just her face. "What?" "So," he tried to whistle nonchalantly and failed. "What are you doing in the next 20 years? There was a moment's silence. "Oh, that soon?" Teddy bounced a little on the spot and grinned. "Katie, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship." Coltrane's laugh sent up a second flock of screeching parrots, and Molly dropped the badge. "Oh, it's okay." Teddy ducked down to fetch his badge. Katie, give me a hand." The end.
Oh my god!
I bet this was George Lucas's favourite movie. He saw this in '96 and was like, Obi-Wan needs a dinosaur companion. This is really good.
We made it!
Woo!
Oh my god!
So I've got to ask you all,
And
as I always do, was the book better?
fucking oath.
Yes.
The book was amazing.
The book was awesome.
There we go. And we proved once again that writing novelizations is a piece of piss.
Yeah,
It really wasn't
dead
hard.
easy.
Yes.
Absolutely. Especially, a lot of people did it like in just a couple of hours, just at the last minute, just
Yeah.
bam, done.
Couple of hours,
There you
bottle
go.
of wine.
Put it in an airport.
And
Sold.
let's face it, we put a lot more into this than say your High School Musical or your kids' novelization, which is basically just lines of dialogue strung together with he said, she said. So this is pretty much top tier writing.
Top tier novelization writing.
Champagne novelization.
We are
Yes.
all available to write novelizations. You can reach us through the site.
Yeah,
Yes.
Well, that
Agreed.
was massive, guys.
that was so much fun.
Woo!
Thank you so much, everyone, for doing it. Thanks again to Tim for compiling all that
Tim.
information.
Thanks, Tim. You're awesome.
And thanks to Xavier, who contributed from foreign lands.
Also awesome, but only little, so not as much in the degree of awesome as Tim. But he'll grow into it.
He's only a little tacker.
He's only a little one. Bless.
Youngin. So, any other final thoughts before I do this obligatory spiel?
Just what the fuck?
What the fuck, son? That's the.
I'm going to watch the
vibe.
film, see how it all pans out. So,
Good luck with that.
I'm not going to.
of course, this is the last Book Was Better for the year. We'll come back probably sometime late January.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
So yeah, Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Wait,
Happy
Holidays.
Isaac Newton-mus.
You know what we probably should do? Thank Luke for
yeah.
all of his work, probably.
Thanks for keeping the podcast going.
This is actually a novel idea that this is not prompted by you at all.
Started very sweet from this side, then the Voltron of Scorn slowly form, all the pieces came together. Suzanne was like, I'm getting on this on the left leg.
Because you put out FP podcast, you put out Scarjo Go-Go, you put out Book Was Better, and you do a lot of work in putting together the Book Was Better as well. And you've done a lot of work in coordinating this episode in particular. I think that deserves like a golf clap at least.
Golf clap.
God, oh, lovely. Thank you, guys. I'm blushing underneath my spines and gelatinous. Yeah, and look, thank you also for plugging those other shows. You can find out about all those other shows
Smoothly
at
done, Lizzy.
fruitlesspursuits.com. That is the easiest way. There's links to them all there. Scarjo A Go-Go is taking a break until probably mid-end of January as well. But Fruitless Pursuits Cast, the general pop culture podcast, is still going. It's going to go every week because we're going to do all our end-of-year best-of wrap-ups and things. And there's a lot of cool movies coming out, and we like to see free movies, so we're going to keep going. So yes, do check that out. Thank you, everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, everyone who supported the show and listens. And this is, if you want to give us a Christmas gift, rate and review us on iTunes. If you haven't done already, let people know. Come and join the Facebook discussions. We'd love to hear what you thought. All right, thanks everyone, and I believe the honour goes to you, Jess.
Thank you very much. Happy holidays, everybody, and we'll catch you on the flips.
Woo!
Jumanji.